All right, it's time for the live stream. It's the pre-show, everybody. It is our SY0-501 December end of the year Security Plus study group. How does this work? The chat room is asking. What a good question. Well, in the first hour, I will ask you questions. I'll give you instructions on how you can answer those online. And then in the second hour, we open up the phone lines in the chat room so that you can ask me questions. All right, now we've got that going on our screen. This is going. Hello, chat room. Hello, everybody. Let's make sure this is up. It is. There it is. Nice. All the screens look good. We are recording down here. There's my Cylons. I messed those up already today, so we got that fixed. We're recording up here. That's working. It's all good in the neighborhood. We got All Security Plus SY0-501 is going to be what we will discuss today. Although a little bit of that is overlapped to the 601. So if you're studying for the 601, there'll be something in here for you as well. And of course, we'll talk about those transitions if you would like. Brett passed your Security Plus just before Thanksgiving. Thanks for your videos. Well, congratulations. Well done. It's always nice to get that under your belt. The Security Plus is also a tough one. So it's nice to, probably more than the others. I find the questions are more involved on the Security Plus exam. Maybe they're getting away from that. We'll see. I haven't quite done the research I need on the latest exam. I may have to go out and actually take the exam, which I don't like doing, but I may have to do that. We'll see. I don't think much has changed though, according to what I've heard. So we will see. We will see. All right. Security Plus. I have questions ready. I have the books are ready. My phone is not charging. There we go. Now the phone is charging. I could probably put a wireless charger in here somewhere, couldn't I? Yeah, but I have to take it out of my case, put it on the charger, pull it back. It's just too complicated. I'm just too lazy. That's how that works. All right. Let's see what. Hello, everybody. I can't even see the chat room. You're way over on the right side. I have to bend my head. Let's pop out the chat. Let's put it over to the left side where it's supposed to be. That's better. Now I got the camera, the chat, the screens. Everything is right there. Now, this is much better. What phone am I using? This is an iPhone. It's an iPhone. I have the iPhone. I have the Apple infrastructure here, the Apple architecture, the Apple environment, the Apple thing going on. Because most of what I do is on this machine in front of me, which is a iMac Pro. So most of everything happens on that machine. Although up there is Windows, and if you're on my website, you're on Linux. So I don't care what you use, but that just happens to be my primary desktop. So the phone sort of works with all of that. It's remarkable to find all of those things. Well, the iOS version, everybody should just be running the latest one anyway. But of course, yes, of course people are finding exploits. That's what they do. And then we get patches, and then we patch it. It's the circle of life. All right, we got Security Plus. I need to dust in here. I'm noticing that I'm a little behind. Do I use a Windows environment inside of my Mac? Yeah, I have Boot Camp, and I've got it set up in a VM. So at any point, I can start up the Windows front end on this as well. Okay, let's get rid of bookmarks here. Get rid of that. That's not what I need. View. Do not show bookmarks bar. There we go. This is not a bad setup. It is one that has evolved over time. Although some things are just the same as they've always been. The microphone I'm using is the microphone I've always used. The audio setup is a little different than what I've used, but I've used it for a long time now. It's been a long time with this mixer. And the latest is really an update to 4K that happened earlier this year. So the video switcher is new this year. The camera is new this year. Internally, you don't even see this stuff underneath, but there are video recorders. There are video matrix switches. All that had to be upgraded to 4K. It wasn't just, new camera. No, there was more stuff to do. So can we go over performance-based questions? Every new question, the first new question of every month is a performance-based question. And there's one this month as well. I think this month's is pretty good. It's a little bit different format than we've done in the past because you've said you want it to be more like an exam. So I tried to make the one today. The problem is that the online system that we use is not, it doesn't have drag and drop. It doesn't have matching. But I think I've found a way to do that. We'll see. We'll see if it works or not. Maybe it'll be just awful. Maybe make sure I've got the right presentation up now that I think about it. Yep, everything looks good. Time frame, 4 minutes to go. 4 minutes. I need a shot of this. Answer the questions, you'll go to professormesser.com/QA. Or instructions are on the live page at professormesser.com/live. Boy, you can tell. You put a little bit of that spray. Now I can really, that's nice. Okay. It would be nice to make the practice test more interactive instead of PDF. Well, it would be, but the trade-off is that it's now an interactive test that doesn't work for everybody. It only works for the people that happen to be online or that happen to have access to the operating system that allows them to take that test. It was obviously there are advantages and disadvantages to putting in a PDF format, but my objective with that was to make it as available as possible to everybody, even to the point that you could print it as a book. Here's the practice test book, and you could sit somewhere and take a practice test in a book. And really the only way to make it as accessible, make it offline, make it work with any operating system in the world pretty much, make it all work was really to do this. So that's, whenever you start getting into this and working through it, that's the real key is that's the decision-making process I did. So that's why whenever you start getting into this, that it's the real key of making that happen. Okay. ProfessorMesser.com/QA gets you to the questions and answers. 2 minutes to go. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. We will get there. All right. We'll figure out the detail. How long have I been doing this? Well, about 8 minutes now, as it turns out. It's a much more difficult question if we go deeper than that. And we can talk about that in the after show if you'd like. Like, how did we get here? How did this craziness bring us to this point? Well, we can talk about that. We can get it all discussed. How is this look? Am I in the center? I'm sort of in the center. I'm kind of in the center. There we go. It's a little better. I'll bring the keyboard over. Switcher's good. Okay. I think we're in pretty good shape. Please stop doing that. Make sure this person is not doing that. What else do we have going on? I think once we get to the point that we do Q&A, we can talk Q&A in the after show. So anything you've got, questions and answers about, do I get nervous doing YouTube Live? No, I don't think. At this point, we're past the point of being nervous. I don't think that's really the issue. I think it's more of, is everything going to work? That's the real issue. This whole thing gets kind of set up 2 hours beforehand. I make sure everything is working functionally because there have been times when I plugged it all in and lights didn't turn on, that kind of thing. So you never know what you're going to run into in that scenario. But it all worked today, so it's good. Can't find the 501 videos on my channel. There's an interesting reason behind that. So we'll of course talk about that and get into the details, but we'll go through why that is. It's a YouTube learning playlist. But the playlist is available. You can find the videos right on professormesser.com/YouTube or youtube.com/professormesser. It works both ways. So let's make sure we got a green light and we can get this thing started, everybody. Here we go. Green lights are good. And let's get it started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the December 2020 Professor Messer Security Plus Study Group, our SY0-501 Security Plus Study Group. Now we have to differentiate because there's a 501 and a 601 available. We'll talk all about all of that in just a moment. This is our study group where in the first part of the study group, I will ask you questions that come directly from the SY0-501 exam objectives. In the second hour, I will have everything here so that you could ask me questions in the chat room. You can put the you can call in. We'll open up the phone lines. You're welcome to do that as well. We'll talk all about that in the after show, and we can talk about whatever you would like in the after show to do all of those things. In this first hour, though, I'm going to ask you questions. And the questions you can answer online if you're here live. If you're watching this on a replay, this will not apply to you. But if you're one of the folks who are here, hello chat room, that are watching this live, then you can go to professormesser.com/QA, download the Socrative student app. And that's one way to do it if you like your mobile devices and use it. Or you can just pop open a new browser window, go to professormesser.com/QA. That will get you there. Both of those will get you to where you need to be in both of those situations. Now, if you do that, you pop up a new browser window, go to professormesser.com/QA. You use the Socrative student app and go to the room name Professor Messer, all one word. Make sure you spell it right, PROFESSORMESSER. Or just use this link here at the bottom, professormesser.com/QA. You will get there. Find all of those and what you need to do. And if you do that and everything is working, you will see a question will pop up that says, which of the following would be the best way to prevent physical access to a server in a third-party colocation data center? This is a question from last month. This is our rewind question, just to see if you can get into the chat, just see if you can get into the Q&A, see if you can find the answers and do all of those things. You have some options available. Is it a Faraday cage? Is it bollards? Is it video surveillance? Is it a safe? Or is it a locking cabinet? You have a few options to choose from. Please don't put an answer in the chat room. That's one of our number one rules. And if you would, please also have a look at those answers there. Choose the right one, and you can just stay on that page, and it will, of course, just change automatically as you go through this. So hopefully you know the answer to that. We'll come back to that answer in just a moment. Thanks for being here. Thanks for supporting the website. Thanks for participating in our live streams. Thank you for everything you do. It really has been an amazing year. This is our last study group of the year. I cannot believe it. And it really is thanks to you. We really do appreciate your participation and your help and your recommendations and everything that you do. You can, of course, find our weekly Security Plus Pop Quiz questions on Twitter, professormesser.com/Twitter. You can also find us on Instagram. Yes, there are questions. Q&A. You can actually learn something by going to Instagram. Who would have thunk it? Go to professormesser.com/Instagram. There's also, of course, our YouTube, and I'm putting all the new Security Plus videos out constantly now. So if you are someone who wants to be informed when those new Security Plus videos are posted, the instant they're available, you need to subscribe to our YouTube channel by going to professormesser.com/YouTube, hitting the subscribe, and hitting that bell so that you get notified when I upload those videos. I edited 3 new ones this morning that have not been posted yet, so we're so close. I'm going to put something out there today. So that's where you should go, is to YouTube and subscribe to that. We're going to talk about the SY0-501 today. All the questions today come from the 501. Some of them will also apply to the 601. The 501 exam is still available, though. It was released in October 2017. You can still take the 501 exam until July 31st. You have over 6 months from now, here in December 2020 on the 17th, to be able to take the SY0-501 exam. And if you are able to do that, I would really recommend you do that. Pretty important that you get that. And as soon as you pass it, you earn the Security Plus exam and it's good for 3 years. If you pass the 501 on July 31st of 2021, it's still going to be good for 3 years. And it's a much easier exam than the 601. The 601 was released in November, about a month ago. It's a brand new exam. That's why it's so difficult to find content for it right now. There were a few things that have been rushed out, and you can tell. There's some very good materials that will be coming in January and March. Of course, my videos are starting to be released as well. We have some content we'll talk to you about today. That will probably retire somewhere around May of 2024. So if you're looking at the timing and think, there's no way I'm going to finish this by the end of July, then you should study for the 601. The 601, though, much bigger exam. I think my personal recommendation is that you should not wait or even take the 601 until you absolutely have to. I explain why in my video for why you shouldn't wait for the SY0-601 Security Plus exam at professormesser.link/601wait. I think you should take the 501 if at all possible. It will be so much easier. There's tons of content available to learn from. It's just so much better to have all of that. So that's my recommendation. Also, don't forget to get the objectives. They are free. And on the CompTIA website, professormesser.com/objectives, will take you there. Whether you take the 501 or the 601, it's one exam. It's 90 questions long. You could get a maximum of 90 questions. You could get fewer than 90 questions. You have to earn a passing score of 750 on a scale from 100 to 900. And it's a combination of performance-based questions and multiple choice-based questions. And we're going to do a performance-based question coming up shortly. So stick around for that. That'll be the first thing that we do to be able to make that happen. For those of you familiar with my 501 course, you know that you can watch every video, every single minute of every video online for free. But of course, I have offline versions of these videos. I have MP3 audio versions. There's my practice exams. There's my course notes. There's my exam hacks ebook. There's preferred access to Q&A for this live study group. And there's more there too. You can get all of that and help support the site from our SY0-501 Security Plus Success Bundle. If you want to learn more about that, it's at professormesser.com/501SB. That's the 501 Success Bundle. We've also got free questions out on the website, professormesser.com/take10. These sections of 10 questions that you will get on the Take 10 exam. We've put a few out there for the 501, and we will be putting them out there for the 601 as well. I'll have to go through a few of them, make sure there's some good 601 questions in there and fill in those other blanks for things. There's also a replay of this live study group available immediately after it's over on YouTube. It takes a few minutes to process it, and then the video is available. There's also audio replays of this available in podcast form. You can subscribe to those, put them in your favorite podcast listening program by visiting professormesser.com/podcast, or simply search for the podcast on your favorite audio streaming platform. It should be there. And if it's not there, tell me and I'll put it on that platform. I'll just tell me where you'd like it to go and I will put it there. You may also notice about a day after this that suddenly the YouTube video description has all of these timestamps on it afterwards. You can quickly click to exactly where you want to go in the video. Those timestamps are put there by my marketing manager, Lori, who has to listen to this entire thing through there. So she also watches the chat go by. So if anybody is using that and you appreciate it, make sure you tell Lori in the chat so that she knows that all of her hard work is not in vain. And it isn't. Thank you, Lori, for doing this. We all appreciate it. And you can go back years of time and get these timestamps from this. It's really a great tool, especially if you want to go back and watch some of these study groups very, very quickly. It's like skipping over the commercials and everything. You go right to the meat of exactly what you're looking for. Let's go back to that question I asked earlier, which was, which of the following would be the best way to prevent physical access to a server in a third-party co-location data center? If you've never been in one of these data centers before, these are very large buildings, large data centers, with just enormous, you can't even see from one end to the other. And it usually has literal cages set up in it that are sectioned out. So you can buy a little bit of real estate in a data center that has all redundant network connections. It has redundant cooling. It is secure. It's fantastic. But you have to put it in these cages because there's a lot of companies that have all their equipment there, and you want to make sure nobody can mess around with somebody else's stuff. So now how do you prevent physical access to your server? I don't really have cage listed here. I have Faraday cage, but a Faraday cage is not a cage, so to speak. That would not be the right thing to choose. Let's see how you chose with this one between Faraday cage, bollards, video surveillance, safe, or locking cabinet. 83% of you said that's what you would use, a locking cabinet. That's usually what we put inside of those cages or inside the data center so that nobody can gain access to those. That's what you would really focus on doing, is putting them in that. A Faraday cage is a type of structure that is not technically a cage, but it is something that can prevent radio signals from going in and out. That is one that would not really apply here. It doesn't prevent anybody from gaining access to a system. It simply prevents radio signals from going in and out. Not exactly what we were looking for. We've also got bollards, which is another way to say this is those big concrete barriers that you see outside of buildings. You know, that is something so that cars and other types of equipment would not be able to get into the building that way. So it's a way to prevent that with those barricades. Video surveillance, that doesn't stop anybody from accessing a server. And a safe, usually we don't keep our servers in a safe. So that would not be the way to do it either. The best choice here really is the one that everyone chose. 84% of you anyway chose locking cabinet, and that is what you would use. This is sort of a co-location data center without cages, but everything is locked up. You can see that on the handles for these 19-inch racks that are set up, there are locks there, although keeping the key in the lock, probably not the highest security that you would be looking for. You probably want to take the key with you. Maybe they were just there for the time being, leaving the key in there, and they were taking the key with them when they're done. Probably not a best practice to be able to have that there, but locking cabinet is the great way to do that. If you answered E, locking cabinet, that is the right answer. Let's now shift gears a bit. I wanted to put together for you a question that was a performance-based question, just as it shows there, not a multiple choice. What we just did was multiple choice, where there was a question and you had multiple choices to choose from. But the first handful of questions you get on your Security Plus exam will not be multiple choice. Do not be thrown by this. Do not be surprised by this. It is a performance-based question. It's a question that's anything but multiple choice. So it could be fill in the blank. They could put you at a command prompt and ask you to perform a function. It might be a matching question. It might be a drag and drop question. They might present you with a configuration that you have to fill in. It just depends on what the exam objectives happen to ask for related to this. So I wanted to give you a drag and drop type of question, or maybe even one where you select from a pull down menu. I've seen questions like that before, but as those of you that have watched our study groups before, I don't have that functionality online, but I do have fill in the blank. So what we're going to do today is one that is sort of a drag and drop slash a pull down menu question. It's really more of a pull down menu question. And it is one that asks to select the authentication factor. And I know my head is in the way here, so let me get my head out of the way and we'll do this. Select the authentication factor. And there are 5 authentication factors for each one of these. The authentication factors are the ones you might expect. They are something you are, something you do, something you have, somewhere you are, and something you know. And they're identical on each of these. So I have 4 separate situations where we have to select the authentication factors, maybe an S. There may be more than one authentication factor that you have to select. It may not just be one. It may be multiples. So you have to select all of them that are correct for this particular one. So here are the 4 different situations you may find yourself in. Number 1, let me change it so you can put the answer online. There you go. Number 1 is a pseudo-random number is retrieved from a smartphone app. Is that one or a combination of something you are, something you do, something you have, somewhere you are, or something you know? The second on our list is An IP address and password is sent to an authentication server. That's another one. We have to choose one or more answers here of what authentication factors may apply for that particular scenario. Third on our list, a fingerprint reader is installed with a PIN pad. And fourth is a signature is provided to a delivery company. So those are your 4 different authentication factors to pull in for this. You have to, number 1, a pseudo-random number is retrieved from a smartphone app. An IP address and password is sent to an authentication server. A fingerprint reader is installed with a PIN pad. And lastly, a signature is provided to a delivery company. Now, I know it's fill in the blank online, so you may just want to fill in online with the primary authentication factors that might apply for that one. You know, if this was a touchscreen, we could just turn on the ones that would apply. Or we had a pull-down menu, we would pull down and choose or do a matching. But this might be a good one to try for being able to work through these. I think that's something we should always think about as we're going through this. Is figuring out different ways to present these questions. Now, what's interesting about this, by the way, is I'm kind of showing it to you as you would just pick the right one. On your exam, it might be a pull-down menu, or it might be one where you select multiple options, but it really is just a different way to ask the content that's already in your exam objectives. So don't worry about performance-based questions that they might be more difficult, because in a situation like this, this really isn't a higher difficulty. It's just a different way of asking the question. So I think that's the important part, is to go through this and figure out the details. If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and put your answer in. It's a fill in the blank online, because I don't have a pick 2, pick 3, pick 4 that I can do. And I don't have a matching, or I don't have a pull down menu option in this online system that we use. Maybe in the future we'll have something like that. But this one should get you thinking about those 4 different types, watching the answers come in for this. What you will not find, people are kind of talking about this in the chat room, they're always worried about trick questions. There are no trick questions on the exam. There's nothing on the exam that I would qualify as a trick question. There are questions that ask very specific types of information, and if you know your content, the right answer is going to pop right out at you. So it's more about, you're right, it's more about how the questions are sometimes very wordy, and they do have a particular style, a particular cadence, a particular voice to them. Let's see how you did with this one. Let's step through these 4 different scenarios where I want you to select the authentication factor. A pseudo-random number is retrieved from a smartphone app. What authentication factor would we use? I'm going to slide through this and sort of look at what's listed here. Some folks are putting in the answers. Most of you, I think, got this particular one, which you can't see because my big head's in the way. There we go. It's something you have. That smartphone is what you have. You have the phone with you. So if I'm having you reference something on the phone, that means that you have to, you're probably the person who owns that phone. You're able to gain access to the phone. You are able to unlock the phone. You're able to start the smartphone app. The smartphone app has been synchronized with our login system. And I can pretty much guarantee that if you can read the pseudo-random number off that smartphone app, then you probably have that phone with you. So that is something you have. That number 1 on your list, something you have. Second on our list is an IP address and password is sent to an authentication server. You know, normally it's a username and a password. This was an IP address and a password, which means it's probably 2 different authentication factors. And if we were to select the 2 that we think it is somewhere you are and something you know. Those are 2 very good options for this one. An IP address is very often something you can associate with a general location, certainly a country in most cases, although not always. But a IP address is somewhere you are. We can get a pretty good idea of where you might be based on an IP address. And a password is certainly something you know. It's not something that you have. It's not a place you are. It's not something you do. It's something that's in your brain Nobody else knows that password except you. So that is something you know. Those are the two authentication factors if an IP address and password are being used during the login process. Third on the list is a fingerprint reader is installed with a PIN pad. This is very common to see on fingerprint readers, by the way. Most of the time when you're going into a data center, for example, and it has a fingerprint reader rather, you would use your fingerprint, and then it requires you to type in a PIN, a personal identification number. So the fingerprint reader installed with a PIN pad is two different authentication factors. It is something you are, because there's a fingerprint reader, my fingerprint is something I am, and something you know is the PIN, is the personal identification number. Just like a password is in your brain and is something you know, the personal identification number is in your brain and is something only you know. So those are the two answers for that one, something you are and something you know. Last one on the list, a signature is provided to a delivery company. FedEx shows up at the door, they have you sign for something, they check it out, and that is something you do. A signature is something you do. The way you walk is something you do. The way you type even is something you do. Although very often we don't evaluate the way people are walking or the way people are typing, but that is a way that many people do manage and think about how they can authenticate a person. So those are the options. Those are the answers that you have. A pseudo-random number retrieved from the smartphone app is something you have. An IP address and password sent to an authentication server is somewhere you are and something you know. A fingerprint reader installed with a PIN pad is something you are and something you know. And a signature provided to the delivery company is something you do. Those are the four authentication factors. The authentication factors are even expanded a bit further on the 601 exam. So part of this does apply towards the 501 and 601. But the 601 takes the idea of authentication factors, categorizes them a bit differently, and adds on a couple. So that pretty much describes the entire 601 exam. They categorize things differently and add on more stuff. That's a pretty good representation of what the 601 exam happens to be. That is your performance-based question of the month. It's your final performance-based question of the year. Hopefully that's something that got you thinking, that got you evaluating how well you understood authentication factors. And if you missed any of these, or if any of these seemed odd to you, make sure you check out my video in the 501 series, section 4.1, AAA and authentication, where I go through each one of these authentication factors and use examples like this in that video, as a matter of fact. So that's a good example. And I explain why an IP address may or may not be a good way to determine where someone might be. Although there are places where getting the IP address is an exceptional way to determine where someone might be. And we can talk about that as well when we are working through all of that. Let's now shift gears and move to a multiple choice-based question. This multiple choice-based question asks, which of these would provide a connection between smartphones without the use of an access point? Would the answer be VPN, ad hoc, extranet, honeypot, or DMZ? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA, lock in your answer. Please no questions and answers in the chat room. The question again, which of these would provide a connection between smartphones without the use of an access point? Would that be VPN, ad hoc, extranet, honeypot, or DMZ? Those are your 5 possible answers. Go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. These are questions that not quite as complex as the questions you might get on your actual exam, but of course all the content that is in here deals with topics that would certainly appear on an exam. So this is one where don't worry that these questions seem awfully easy to go through. Well, they are. These are review questions. These are not sample practice exam questions. There's not enough room. There's not enough space on this screen to be able to put an actual full-size Security Plus exam question. I guess some of them are. Some of the exam questions you get are relatively straightforward. They ask you a single question. It's a sentence long, and you can get the answer. But a lot of questions are not. Many of them are not. So this is one of these that is very straightforward. Hopefully you're familiar with this technology and what is being asked of you in this particular case. And you certainly do need to know if you're going to be working in IT security, because the way that devices connect to each other can be quite a challenge. Let's see how we did with this one. Which of these would provide a connection between smartphones without the use of an access point? Is it a VPN, ad hoc, extranet, honeypot, or DMZ? 68% of us say that it's ad hoc. 17% of us say VPN. Got VPN on the brain, I think, lately. 7% said extranet, 5% said DMZ, 2% said honeypot, all single digits when it got down to that point. Well, being able to connect two wireless devices together without requiring an access point is called ad hoc. That is the way that we would do that. It's a point-to-point connection between these two devices. It's built into the wireless standard. It's a type of functionality that's probably built into your wireless device. In fact, configuring it, you may even have an option on it to configure it as a access point configuration or an ad hoc configuration. You'll see them listed there to be able to do that. These are configurations that might even have another name. If you have a device that's an Apple device, you have AirDrop. AirDrop is an ad hoc connection between two devices. You've also got a challenge as an IT professional is how do you manage this? Because maybe you don't want people communicating directly between two mobile devices. Maybe that's something you don't want to do. And if that is the particular case, you may have to manage it through your mobile device manager or some other way. That's a pretty important consideration, especially in places that have very high security. Although with some places that have very high security, I've had to leave my phone at the receptionist desk. Sorry, you can't bring your phone in here, period. That's it. You are not allowed. That's certainly a great way to take care of it. You don't have to worry then that there's going to be any ad hoc because my phone's up with the receptionist. Implementing a network access control is something that can use ad hoc or be used with ad hoc, so you can allow or not allow this to work properly. And you may want to decide how you want it to work. Maybe only work with certain applications, maybe only work in certain situations. These are just some of the challenges to be able to do that. If you want to learn more about this, you can go to Secure Network Topologies. It's a video in section 3.2, and you'll notice there's a QR code on each one of these explanation pages. That QR code that's hidden somewhere on this page will take you directly to that. If you've never done that, use those QR codes, just pop open your camera on your phone, point it. You don't have to take a picture. Just point it at the screen, and it will show you a message that will take you to the video that describes this particular question. So something you can think about doing. Ad hoc, definitely the answer we were looking for. 70% of you chose ad hoc. 16% said VPN, and VPN is great to use to securely connect the communication across a network. So you might want to connect in and connect to your corporate office, but you want it to all be over an encrypted channel. That's what you would use for that. VPN is not a way that simply connects devices over a wireless network without an access point. That's not what a VPN is used for. VPN is to create that wireless or that wired or wireless tunnel where you can send traffic through an encrypted channel. Have all of that there. Extranet communication would be communication outside of your intranet, outside of where your local network might be. That has nothing to do with smartphones connecting without an access point. DMZ, a demilitarized zone, now a term that's not used in really the 501 or 601. You'll notice the 501 exam objectives were recently updated this past month, and they changed all the names of things. So there's no longer a whitelist or blacklist. There's no longer a DMZ. There's no longer a man in the middle. All those names have been changed. So there's now a separate access network. I forget exactly what they changed DMZ to. The rest of the industry hasn't changed any of these names, just the CompTIA exam objectives. So we'll have to go reference what that happens to be. And a honeypot is used to be, oh, I didn't explain it. DMZ is where you would put something kind of on the edge of your network that would allow external people to access it, but it would not allow those external people access to your internal network. It's kind of a middle ground, a demilitarized zone, a DMZ. Screened subnet. Thank you, chat room. So the screened subnet, don't even see that I put that in there. I am not one of those. So screened subnet is what you should say instead of DMZ. And a honeypot is a way to set up a fake network with fake servers, and people can access it from the outside thinking they're getting into real systems, but instead they are not. That has nothing to do with communication between smartphones. Your answer here is B, ad hoc. That is the right answer. Yes, DMZ is a screened subnet. A man trap is now an access control vestibule. I am not making that up. That's a real thing. An access control vestibule is now a man trap. So those terms have changed on both the 501 and 601. I don't know. I guess you have to know all of them now. So I know I'm not making that up. People in the chat room are questioning my sanity. Oh, it's not a change. It's not my sanity. In this case, nothing related to my sanity. We'll be able to figure out in this next question. If it is, let's do another question that asks, a user authenticates with a mobile app that changes a pseudo-random number every 30 seconds. Which of the following would best describe this functionality? Is it HOTP, biometrics, PIV, TOTP, or CAC? Those are not what I was expecting. I thought we were getting a different answer here. A user authenticates with a mobile app that changes a pseudo-random number every 30 seconds. Which of the following would best describe this functionality? Is it an HOTP? Is it biometrics? Is it PIV? Is it TOTP? Or is it CAC? If you think you know the answer, stop Googling. Don't do that. You should absolutely go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. Please, no answers in the chat room. Get all of those. Yes, we now have the 601 objectives the 601 and 501 objectives all change themselves. So make sure you always have the latest exam objectives because they do change some of the terms in there from time to time. Nothing that I think would really cause you a problem on the actual exam, but some of the names did change quite a bit. Changing mantrap to an access control vestibule, that's a pretty big change. But some of the others like screen subnet versus DMZ, yeah, I can get that. On-path attack versus man in the middle, okay, got it. Those aren't so hard to figure out. So it wasn't really that big of a change. But you just need to be aware of it in case it shows up whenever you do that in your actual exam. So just be ready for that. So figure out those details. This is whenever you start going through these and breaking them down, this really does become a little bit more of a challenge to figure out the details. See if you know what some of these abbreviations are. You may be able to take them off the list, and then it's much easier to be able to do that. So those terms have changed in the 501 and the 601. They updated the 501 exam objectives a couple weeks ago, but they just changed those single words on the exam objectives. They didn't change the objectives themselves. They just changed some of the words that were used in the objectives. So there you go. Did the industry change it? No. CompTIA just changed the words. I guess the industry is kind of moving that direction. We're all moving to something that's a little more politically correct, I guess. So we're going to see how this works for a while, I guess. I don't care what you call it. I'll put down on the sheet and we'll figure it out and take your exam. I'm not invested in any way. So if we want to call it an access control vestibule, that's what I'll call it. We'll stick it in the exam objectives and I'll put it in the video. It's just that easy. So we'll figure out the details. Let's see how you did on this one. This one had no weird terms we had to figure out, just a bunch of abbreviations. None of those abbreviations changed at all. This question asked, a user authenticates with a mobile app that changes a pseudo-random number every 30 seconds. Which of the following would best describe this functionality? Is it an HOTP? Is it biometrics? Is it PIV? Is it TOTP? Is it CAC? Yeah, you know me. The answer, how did we do? 70% of you said TOTP. is the right answer. 12% said HOTP was the right answer. We've got 10% that said PIV was the correct answer. We've got 5% that said CAC, and then 3% that said biometrics. So with 70% saying TOTP, I suspect the time-based one-time password algorithm is what we were looking for. The real key with this one is the T part. It's the time-based, because the question asked about the changing of this number every 30 seconds. So we know every 30 seconds is going to be a new pseudo-random number. So it's time-based. It's based on the time. The clock is ticking. It's clicking down to 30 seconds. And then, oh, I've got this old BattleNet screenshot in here, don't I? It's a newer screenshot in the 601. But it's counting down. You can't see the green thing there, but the green thing counts down 30 seconds, and then it gives you a new one. So a lot of our authentication uses the time-based one-time password algorithm to do this. There's a secret key that's configured on both sides. It's synchronized via NTP, and they give you about 30 seconds or so to give you that code. So most authentication methods do this, but there's a number of authentication methods I use that are not time-based. They're a single-use HOTP to have this. So the HOTP is one where you are not waiting 30 seconds. Maybe you just get a text message. Here's the number you use. Or maybe it's a list of numbers, and you have to go down that list until you finish them. And then they'll give you another list to be able to have that. The TOTP is probably one of the most common, though. If you're logging into BattleNet, if you're logging into Google, if you're logging into PayPal, if you're logging into any one of these things, I have so many. I use Authy on my computer, and I must have 20 different authentication systems set up for all of these different websites that I go to. And so each one of them has a timer that's ticking down on each one of them. There's also a push method I'm seeing a lot of folks use now as well. So noticing Yahoo's doing more push. I've got a couple systems I use that do more of a push method. But the NTP, the Network Time Protocol, is your time synchronization, so that everybody knows exactly the timing with this. And it's got some built-in functionality in the software, too, to keep it up to date with each other, because it is able, when you put it in, it knows what the previous number was. It knows what the next number is going to be. And if you're jumping ahead to the next number, it adjusts its own clock to know, kind of sync it up with you. So just in case you don't want to have these numbers go out of sync. TOTP is the right answer. It's what we would want to use. Biometrics is when we're using our fingerprint, our iris, our handprint. That would be something we use. That would not be a pseudo-random number we use. PIV and a CAC, methods of using smart card or identification cards to be able to gain access to the network. Very commonly seen in federal government and Department of Defense type configurations. If you're not in federal government, you're not in Department of Defense, and you probably have never seen those before. But the breakdown of the Common Access Code and the information content on both of those, they usually include a nice certificate in there as well to have those. So both of those are not common, but you will certainly see them in different environments. Those are your options. If you're someone who has gone through and worked through the different authentication methods, whether it is the HMAC-based one-time password algorithm, the personal identity verification, the common access card, the time-based one-time password, or biometrics, all of those might be something that you need to be familiar with. If they don't look familiar, then you need to go through those exam objectives, because those are certainly something you should work with. Now, I've got some pretty good options on there. That's why that QR code is there. It is in section 4.3, Access Control Technologies, under my SY0-501 exam videos. Let's do another one. Let's do a multiple choice question. This one is going to ask you, which of the following would be the most volatile? Which of the following would be the most volatile? Would it be a temporary file? Would it be backup media? Would it be a routing table? Would it be switch statistics? Or would it be a network topology? Which of these would be the most volatile? Is it a temporary file, backup media, routing table, switch statistics, or network topology? All things you need to gather as you're doing your forensics work, but which one should you gather first? There's your hint anyway. So that would help you. For those of you wondering, what's this word volatile mean? What is that about? That was my hint. That was a pretty big hint. It was kind of a gimme. I'm surprised I even did it. But there you go. I'm feeling very good here at the end of the year. So I did give you a little bit of a hint to work. But now you still have to work through all the answers to figure out what that would be. So this is another one of those topics and another one of those terms that comes directly from the CompTIA exam objectives, and being familiar with those. That's whenever I start breaking through here and trying to figure out the details. That's where I would focus on, is knowing those different things. Maybe that would be something you would be familiar with as you go through these different questions. Do you know what all of those things are? The temporary file, the backup media, the routing table, the switch statistics, and the network topology. You have to know what all 5 of those things are so that you can then determine, based on the comparison of those things, which ones are volatile. That would be what you would want to do. Well, I gave you a shot on that one. Now we're not going to do that anymore. This is where we would really focus on our exam, is knowing these terms. If you're not familiar with the terms, there's a big appendix in the back, kind of a set of acronyms. It's in the back of the exam objectives. Not really an appendix. It's kind of part of the objectives, but it's big. It's pages long of just all of these different acronyms that are there. And they've actually done a pretty good job on the 601, and they updated the 501 too, so that the acronyms are pretty good now. There were some acronyms in earlier versions they didn't quite have correct. They were just, I don't know, they just made them up. I don't know. But there they are. But they certainly got them right on this latest set. Let's see how you did with this one. Which of the following would be the most volatile? Would it be a temporary file, backup media, routing table, switch statistics, or network topology? 55% of you say it would be a temporary file is what you would call the most volatile. You got 17% said routing table and 15% said switch statistics, basically a tie. And then 8% said backup media and 5% said network topology. So you've got a list of these in my video, 5.5 Gathering Forensics Data. This is also in my course notes, where I have a list of all of these different information types, and I list them from most volatile, which means they're not going to be around very long. They're going to disappear very, very quickly, down to the least volatile. So the most volatile would be things like CPU registers. The data in your CPU is changing thousands, millions of times a second. Just huge amounts of change going on in the CPU. That's extremely volatile. Things like a router table, kernel statistics, memory, those are things that are a little less volatile in CPU. Temporary file systems, third on our list. Disk, remote logging, physical configurations, and archival media. So looking at all of these, CPU registers and CPU cache wasn't on our list, but a routing table was on our list. Routing tables can change every 30 seconds. They can change quite often, even faster in some cases. Routing table really it modifies itself quite quickly, more than a temporary file might be. Temporary files might stick around for days in some cases. I realize some temporary files are much shorter than that, but temporary files tend to not be something that is more volatile than a routing table. So in this case, I would put routing table as the answer here. C, routing table, is what I would choose. 17% of you chose routing table in that particular case. Routing tables and the dynamic routing algorithms can change dramatically in a very short period of time, especially if something changes on the network. And of course, routing tables can update themselves almost instantly in some cases. So anytime something changes on the network, your routing table might update. So they're relatively volatile when it comes to just relative to these other things anyway, relative to figuring out where it fits in our list. Yeah, in this list, a routing table, an ARP cache, process table, kernel statistics, and memory. Memory is the RAM that's in your system. That's correct. It's not your memory. That'd be different. Maybe it would be more volatile. I don't know. That'd be your memory. Temporary file system, disk, remote logging, monitoring data. That was on our list as well. Monitoring data might be switch statistics, for example. So monitoring a switch and getting the details from it. So it's farther down our list of things that are volatile. Next on our list might be a network topology. And finally, archival media like a backup. So that's where it would be. And you're right, there is a relative term between a temporary file and routing table. It kind of does depend. Sometimes routing tables stay the same for quite some time and don't change very often. Sometimes every update of the routing table is different. So it really depends on the environment you're in. You are correct. But I'll take either one. If you said temporary file or routing table, I'll accept either one of those. They're pretty close to each other in that particular case. I think we can figure that piece out of where they are. Hard drives are pretty non-volatile. Once you store something on a hard drive, it's there unless you delete it. The routing table is on the router. There's also routing tables in your device. If you're in Windows, you can go to the command line and type route print and look at your routing table and see what all is in your routing table. There's something in there. Every device needs to know where do we send traffic to next. So it probably has a routing table inside of it. But we commonly think of those as on the router, but they can certainly be on a workstation or another device connected to the network and have all of those. If you saw the question in the actual exam, it probably would not give you the option between temporary file and routing table. They would probably put more of a distinction in the answer than what I put on this one. Sometimes we figure this out as we're doing it, people. They all can't be winners. But I get pretty close. And I give you partial credit, or I give you duplicate credit in both of these. And we figure it out. We kind of talk about why would it be temporary file over routing table. Then we could talk about why would it be routing table over temporary file. So I would accept either one of those, routing table or temporary file, although I was going for routing table. I still think routing table is a better answer. But we can fight about it. I'm fine with that. This is how family is. We can have arguments about what we think it might be to have all of that available. Let's shift gears a little bit because we're going through all these questions here. And you asked the question, but what if it was more like the exam? I wanted questions more like the exam. And I agree. We need to test ourselves before walking to the exam with something that is a little bit better than the things that I've seen online. So I've seen some of these questions online, and I see them because you send them to me. You send me emails asking me, why does this question say that the sky is banana? And I said, the sky isn't banana. The sky is blue. Yeah, well, this book says the sky is banana. And then I have to go through an entire explanation of why that makes no sense whatsoever. And I realized very quickly there needs to be a better list of questions that can take you through a pretty good example of what an actual exam might be. So I wrote one. I wrote an entire set of practice exams. I wrote 3 separate practice exams that I feel are written with the same style, the same cadence, the same voice, if you will. I tried to emulate the same voice as an actual exam. I think I got pretty close. 400 pages, 90 questions. They're available in both digital and a physical printed book format. This is a PDF, so you can read it on anything. And it's a pretty good explanation. Let's go through one. I'll give you an example. Here's directly from the book. And ask a question that says, Taylor is a help desk administrator for a major transportation company. Her help desk has suddenly been overwhelmed by phone calls from customers. The customers are complaining that their browser is giving a message that the company's website is untrusted. Which of the following would be the most likely reason for this issue? See what I mean? It's a much more involved question. Possible answers are the web server is not running the latest version of software, the corporate firewall is misconfigured, a content filter is blocking web server traffic, or the web server has a certificate issue. So you've got some options there to choose from when you're looking through these. Now, the book gives you the answers as well. You have to go to the answers and go to page 37 for the quick answers, or go to the details, page 54. You can go through there. If you just click on it, because it's a PDF, I put links in the PDF, so you can click the details, and it will take you to those. Please no answers in the chat room. Drive me crazy. Which of the following would be the most volatile? That's not what we wanted. We wanted this. Here we go. We click on the answer. Here we go. And we go to the A13 to have all of these. There is also, if you look at this, it gives you the answer. It's D, the web server has certificate issue. And it explains why it is that way. Any web server issues relating to trust are generally associated with the status of the web server certificate. If a certificate is expired or the fully qualified domain name on the certificate does not match the name of the web server, the end users will see errors in their browser. And then my thing, though, is whenever I take these tests, I never get these right. I always get these wrong. So whenever you break this out, I give you, for each of the incorrect answers, I tell you why each answer was the incorrect one. I give you an explanation. So if you say the corporate firewall was misconfigured, I explain to you that a firewall would be expected to either block or allow traffic to the web server. In this example, the issue is related to the trust between a browser and a web server. So if you've seen this before, then you probably have my book. This is my practice exams book. For those of you wondering, what are we looking at here? This is my practice exams book. And at the end of the page, I put another QR code that takes you right to the video from Objective 2.3 Common Security Issues that will give you more information on this particular one. So there's a lot here. Now, when you're done with this, there's a back button in your browser. You just hit it, click, and you go back to where you were. So you don't have to jump back and forth between all of these. Back and forth and back and forth. Every question in these exam objectives are originally written by me. I write everything that is in these exam objectives. So you're never going to see these questions anywhere else. These are questions that I only put in the book. They're not done in my live events like this. So that is where you would find this. If you get the physical version, you can buy either the digital or the physical version. If you buy the physical version, you get the digital version for free. You can download it right away while I'm shipping you the hard copy version of the book. So you've got a few options there. You can read it either way. It is a big book. It's like 400 something pages. It's a big monster. It's a big thick book, but it's all in there. It's all in there. And I don't care which one you get. Both are exactly the same. Get the one that makes sense for what you're doing too. So very useful to have there. There are 90 questions in each exam, 5 performance-based questions and 85 multiple choice-based questions in each of the 3 exams. So you get 3 separate exams to go through. It's all in there. If you want to know more information on that, it's at professormesser.com/securitype. That's for security practice exams. Both digital and physical versions are available. You can purchase it and download it right now while I am talking and grab it if you would like. So it's all in there. The objective words, I did not update these practice exams. They just updated them a week ago. Maybe I'll go through there and change all of the man traps to access control vestibule if we feel it's that important, but I don't think it will be. I think you'll be okay. I think you'll be able to figure out the details. Let's do some more questions. I've got another one for you. Here is the next one. It's a book, so you can take the practice exams as much as you want. You can go through it anytime you want. The PDF is a book. The PDF, the physical book, is a book. They are both books. And you can just buy the practice exams if you would like. You don't have to buy the bundle. If you buy the bundle, you get a little bit of a discount. But if you want the practice exams and the course notes together, you can pay a little bit less on both combined than buying them individually. So you get a little bit of a break. But they're there. ProfessorMesser.com/securitype is where you get it. Enough of me talking about that. Let's do some more questions. Next one on our list asks, which of the following would prove a received message had not been changed and that it was sent from a specific individual? Would that be a hash? Would it be obfuscation? Would it be symmetric encryption? Would it be a digital signature? Would it be diffusion? Which one of those would it be? The question, which of the following would prove a received message had not been changed and that it was sent from a specific individual? Is it a hash, obfuscation, symmetric encryption, digital signature, diffusion? Which one? Which one? Which one? Go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. The practice exams book is a book. This is the practice exams book. It is a book. So it's a PDF if you get the digital version. So it doesn't mix things up. When you read it the first time through and then you put it down and then you read it through again, everything is exactly the way that it was the first time you read it through. So that a lot of people will think that, oh, this is it's an interactive online thing. It isn't. It's a PDF so that the most number of people that could possibly read it would have access to it. It's a book. So hopefully that clears that up. I know it sounds like maybe it would have been something that you click on online. You have to be online to do it. You don't have to be online to do it. It's all offline. It's all anywhere you want to take it. It works on anything. It'll work on any book reader or any PDF reader you have. It's very useful to have that there. A lot of you are still putting in the answers, so we'll figure out the details of this one and working through it. Go and figure out the details of that. Go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answers. Please, no answers in the chat room. We'll figure out the details. Which of the following would prove a received message had not been changed and that it was sent from a specific individual? Which one of those would it be? Is it, let's see how you did with this one, a hash? Is it obfuscation? Is it symmetric encryption? Is it digital signature? Or is it diffusion? Which one is it? How did we do? 68% of you say it's a digital signature. 22% of you say it's a hash. And then single digits for symmetric encryption, obfuscation, and diffusion. We've got a few options available there. This one, 69%. That's a big number. Say it's digital signature. That is the right answer. Now, why is it digital signature and not a hash? Well, that's because a digital signature is a hash that is then encrypted. So it's sort of a combination of things. You've hashed it to make sure that it hasn't changed, and then you encrypt it with your private key to show everybody that it came from you. That's the real key. As a hash doesn't prove it came from you. It doesn't provide any authentication, and it doesn't provide any non-repudiation. Authentication means that other people can say, oh, this must have come from you. Non-repudiation means we absolutely know it came from you. And you cannot say it did not come from you, which is even stronger than authentication, non-repudiation. And that's why we sign that with the private key to be able to get there. It's verified with the public key so that people can prove that it really did come from you. Sort of combining these two things together. And that's why digital signature is the correct answer and not a hash. Obfuscation is making something difficult to understand. Well, that doesn't help if you're trying to prove it really came from a certain person. Obfuscation is not enough. Symmetric encryption is good if you want to protect it so that nobody can read it, but symmetric encryption won't necessarily prove that it really came from you. And diffusion is a term, the characteristic of working with encryption and hashes, where we can make sure that when we are encrypting it and working through it, that we are really making sure that the information that there is quite different as it goes back and forth between these. There is, in those 5 options, the only one that makes any sense whatsoever for the requirements that are there are digital signature. That's what we would use. Now, if you're watching this video for continuing education unit credit, then you can go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website and click the Contact Us link. The Contact Us link will bring up a form, put in your name, your email address, put in the subject line that this is the December 2020 Security Plus Study Group, and on a line by itself, in all caps if you would, even, to make it even better, put the word diffusion. Diffusion is what you want to put there to have that. I know that wasn't the answer, but that's what we're making the super secret code word of the month, diffusion. And then you can put whatever you'd like also in that message. I read through all of these. I'm not able to respond back to them, but you can certainly do that. Diffusion would be the super secret code word of the month. Follow that process. I usually get these back to you in about a week. I'll probably do these on the weekend, so you'll be able to get that and be able to see that it's there. But it does take me some time. This is not something I turn around in an hour, just so you're clear on that. But if you do need one very quickly, let me know. Sometimes I can do that to be able to work through it. This is where whenever you start going through these terms, make sure you're familiar with all of the terms. They are all something you should know for both the 501 and the 601 exam. Now, I know we're at the top of the hour, but I got a couple questions left. So let's do another one or two real quick. We're in overtime. The next question asks, an attacker is modifying data in real time between two other devices. Which of the following would best describe this attack type? Would it be brute force, shoulder surfing, watering hole, driver manipulation, or on path? An attacker is modifying data in real time between two other devices. Which of the following would best describe this attack type? Is it brute force, shoulder surfing, watering hole, driver manipulation, or on path? One of those. See if you know which one this happens to be. You can lock in your answer by going to professormesser.com/QA. Lock in your answer. Please, no answers in the chat room. That's where you want to put it in, professormesser.com/QA, to have all of that there. Hopefully this is one you're familiar with. I think we've talked about a few of these as we've gone through this today. We've kind of talked about what some of these might be. Some of these we've not mentioned today, though. So I don't know if you're able to get rid of any or include any with this. We'll have to figure it out and see what the different options might be. This is one where understanding the nuances of these attacks becomes pretty important. Yeah, if you know some that it is not, that might help you. A little calculatus limitatus to be able to work through the details of what this might be. Might help. Or just guess. And that's not a bad strategy, by the way. If you just don't know and you're taking the exam, absolutely make a guess. Never leave an option blank. You get no points if you leave them blank. You get no points if you get it wrong, but you get points if you get it right. And if you guess right, that may be the one that now gives you points. And you got free points. You didn't even know the answer. So always guess. You just never know to be able to work through there. Have a deal with what might happen with that. Let's see how you did with this one. An attacker is modifying data in real time between two other devices. Which of the following would best describe this attack type? Is it brute force, shoulder surfing, watering hole, driver manipulation, or on path? It is 57% of you say it's on path. On path is the new term for man in the middle. So that is why it's no longer man in the middle. It's what I thought. I didn't think that was a gender. I thought it was man in the middle. I thought that's what that was, but that apparently I was not correct. It's on path now is the term we need to know. So this is a fantastic term. On path kind of better describes what's going on. And certainly if you're working through the details of this, it's a little bit nicer than saying person in the middle, isn't it? It's on path. It is a person in the middle of this who is on the path of it, I guess. Want to go through, we've now gone down this road and kind of come back the other way of what this is. If someone's doing art poisoning, if they're proxying, if they're adding data to the stream, if they're grabbing data when it's going by, this was changed like 2 weeks ago, for those of you wondering about these terms. They changed them to, why they changed them on the 501, I have no idea. All it's done is create confusion. It was just badly thought about, but boy, I guess they can feel good about themselves. The 601, I understand, it's new version. We can update it. They probably went back the others and changed the others too. Network Plus, A Plus, they probably changed everything. I haven't even looked to see yet. But that's what that is. It's the on-path attack is what you would use. Brute force is when you're trying to crack something over and over again using a lot of different options. Password breaking is usually using brute force. Shoulder surfing, that's what I do on an airplane. See what's that guy doing? What's he doing on his laptop? Let me look over. What you doing? What's that spreadsheet about? That's shoulder surfing. Watering hole is when you are infecting one place to infect all the others. Oh, that's been in the news, hasn't it? Driver manipulation is when someone's actually modifying the drivers of a device to be able to gain access. It's unusual these days because they have to be signed. But that's what that is about. And on path is what we call a man in the middle these days. The proper, should I bleep that out? I guess I should. But on path is what is described by this particular functionality. If you answered E, on path, you got this one absolutely right. Well done. Okay, last one. Are we ready? This is, by the way, the last 501 exam question for our study groups. In January, we start with our 601 Security Plus study groups. So here is our last 501, which technically these questions are 601 as well. So I can say we're shifting to 601, but pretty much everything we've done today has been for both. But I might do some 601 specific in January just so we can do that. This question asks, which of these features would be the best way to prevent spoofing? Would it be RPF, STP, NAC, FloodGuard, or NAT? Which of these features would be the best way to prevent spoofing? Would it be RPF, STP, NAC, FloodGuard, or NAT? These are all real things. I'm not making them up. They're all real things. So lock in your answer. Go to professormesser.com/QA. Yeah, if you took your exam last month, they were different names. This month, we've changed the world. So will the exam ever make up terms? It certainly can, but it does not tend to. There have been answers I've seen on there that have not been real things. But generally, most 99.9% of the exam content is an actual real thing, because they know you've been studying these real things. They know that you've been studying RPF, STP, NAC, FloodGuard, and NAT. Why not confuse you by putting all of those on a screen? If we put something that's obviously something you've never seen before, you're going to be, oh, I've not seen that. We're going to throw that out. So have I ever seen a grammar error on a test? I've seen extensive grammar errors on tests. Yes, I absolutely have. Sure. Why not with all of these? Of course it would be. So you might run into that too, having all of those. Where can you see all the changes? You go to, it's not a lot of changes. Like 6 things changed, 6 terms changed on there. So it's on the exam objectives. Go to professormesser.com/objectives. You can download them and have a look at them. There were like 6 words changed. Instead of a white list and a black list, you've got an allow list and a deny list. That's it. And I know, but that's what they are now. So that's what we're going to call them. Is it good or bad, right or wrong? I don't care. That's just what we're going to call it now. So that makes sense to me. And it does describe them. So we're going to go with that. I already stuck it at my 601 exam. I actually did my entire 601 course, had to go back into the whole course and change all of those. Oh, we got rid of the IDE, the PATA master slave 15 years ago. That's been gone a long time. So, and probably for the better, right? It's a little more specific. It actually explains what it does now for this. So I like that we've done at least some of those thoughts. Let's see how we did with this question, though. Which of these features would be the best way to prevent spoofing? After we're done here, we'll take all these questions, by the way, in the chat room. Hold on to those questions, and we will take them in the after show to have this here. Is it RPF, STP, NAC, FloodGuard, or NAT? We don't know. Boy, we're really confused on this one of what it might be. So what we were looking for is an anti-spoofing technology. For those of you listening in, the reason we don't know the answers, 26% said NAC, 20% said FloodGuard, 22% said NAT, 17% said RPF, and 16% said STP. It's effectively a 5-way tie for first. It's practically all the same. We could not have figured it out any better. What we were looking for was reverse path forwarding. RPF, reverse path forwarding, is a type of anti-spoofing technology that if it sees traffic coming in one particular interface, it sends that traffic back out that interface. So that way, if somebody spoofs it coming in and the spoof would take it out somewhere else, RPF would prevent that from happening. So that's what that is. The other options that are on here, STP, Spanning Tree Protocol, prevents loops on a network, on a layer 2 switched network. That doesn't have anything to do with spoofing. NAC, Network Access Control, is a method used for authentication that not only might check your local machine and make sure that it has everything it needs to safely and properly connect to the network, but it might also put you in a different VLAN when you connect that's specific to your needs, not an anti-spoofing technology. FloodGuard is a way to prevent a type of traffic or lots of traffic coming in through a network connection, not an anti-spoofing technology. And NAT, Network Address Translation, is a way to convert a source or destination IP address to something else, not an anti-spoofing technology. The best way, there's that best word again, to prevent spoofing, reverse path forwarding, or RPF. You want to know more about that? It's in section 2.1 of my 501 course, Router and Switch Security. And I got to tell you, I'm not even sure that technology is listed in the 601 exam objectives now that I'm thinking about it. So maybe it is. I don't think it is. A lot of things were dropped. Half the content of the 501 doesn't exist in the 601 any longer. So that's a pretty good example of something that may not be in that next version of the exam. And we'll know in January, won't we? Because we'll sort of shift gears. All the content we went through today came from those exam objectives, whether you need the 501 exam objectives or the 601 exam objectives. They are all out on the CompTIA website. You can simply Google CompTIA exam objectives or go to professormesser.com/objectives and I have a link that will take you right to it. I do one of these study groups every month. I do multiple study groups every month. I do A+ study groups. I do a Network Plus study group. I do a Security Plus study group. And the next Security Plus study group is at professormesser.com/calendar. And that link, by the way, to the objectives, people in the chat room say it's not there. No, there's a link there that takes you to the CompTIA website for the objectives. I don't keep the objectives on my site because they change too much. Mine would not have updates to an access control vestibule for that. So that's where that would be. Come back on January 20th. We'll do another Security Plus study group. That will be a 601 study group going forward. For those of you still taking the 501 exam, there are 3 years of these practice exam study groups available. You can go back 3 years to go through all of those, and they will all apply to the 501. So although I won't have any new 501 study groups, you've got so much there to pull from in the 501 study groups that are there. Don't worry, there's plenty to go through. If you're someone who would like to be able to just take all of my course material, all these videos, hundreds of videos for Security Plus, and collapse them into one book, it is my exam course notes. I have my 501 course notes. In fact, there they are right here. 501 course notes. There are physical and digital versions available. I'm really just taking all the text, all the graphics, all the charts, and I put them in one document so that you can see what is DNS amplification, what is a buffer overflow. You can visually see what's happening with these. That's on my course notes for the 501. You can find that at professormesser.com/securitycn. But there's also brand new, have you even seen this one yet? 601 course notes. Look at that. And when I say the exam is bigger, these course notes, the other course notes, 94 pages, these are 120 pages. We're starting to get like a thick book of the course notes now. They're just huge of the content that's in there. I do have in the course notes, let's flip over. What do those look like? They look very similar. Just the content is different and varied and updated. You can see some of the graphics and some of the details are new and just tons of content. And it's ordered by the videos that are on my site. So very easy to, if you're watching the videos, you can follow along at the course notes. It's also a great way to support the website. A lot of you said, I'd love to help with this. I've watched all the free videos. Can I give something back? I'd prefer giving you something for giving something back. So this is my way to take your recommendation, but then give you something in return that's going to help you pass the exam. Have a look at those. They are on my website. For the 601 course notes, you can go to professormesser.com/601cn, or they're all at the top of the website. in the big menu that's there. You can go through all that list. Wow, this was overtime today, but stick around for the after show. We're just getting started, everybody. We'll take all of your questions from the chat room. We will open up the phone lines and take questions from you there. Do all of that. Don't forget about the new Security Plus exam videos that are constantly being released. I mentioned in the pre-show, I edited 3 of them this morning. I got to put together the graphics and the text and all that and put it on YouTube. Hopefully I can get that done on YouTube today. So make sure you subscribe and click the bell. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/YouTube. Also, we got our Security Plus questions on Twitter and Instagram. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/Twitter. Of course, find all of our Security Plus content on the ProfessorMesser.com website. It's your one-stop shop. Everything's right there. Got plenty of things for you to pull from there. I have book recommendations. I have practice exam recommendations. I have lab recommendations. It's all on my website. ProfessorMesser.com is where you should go. Stick around for the after show. Thanks for being here in this first hour. We look forward to seeing you in the new year 2021. And we thank you for everything. Thanks for also watching. We'll see you next time on the Security Plus Study Group. Let's see if now it's the after show, everybody. Let's see if I can get, I don't have my Skype up. Let's see if I can call into my own show. That's the real key. There's nobody here but me, so bear with me a moment as I call into my own show because everything's in the cloud. We're going to call into our cloud show, and that'll take questions from the chat room. There were a lot of questions that came up there near the end that I just could not get to. You guys were shotgunning me there, so we're going to see if I can get through all of those and what they happen to be.
Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. I got the nice little ding, ding. Okay, then I type in a thing here, and the nice lady says,
enter your 6-digit PIN.
I will do that. And as I put in my 6-digit PIN, the nice lady says,
welcome, Professor Messer.
well, thanks, nice lady. That means that you can also call in if you would like. There's a toll-free number in the continental U.S., 855-785-RJ45. 855-785-7545. If you are outside of the continental U.S., you can still call for free. You can use Skype. Skype will allow you to call any toll-free number in the U.S. for free. No Skype minutes required, but you have to put a +1 at the beginning. So in Skype, put +1, 855-785-7545. That will also get you to the phone lines, which are full now. Sorry. No, one just dropped off. Somebody dropped off. So one phone line is there and available. So there's something there anyway as we sit through there. From the chat room, let's look at some questions that are coming in. What resources are coming out in January for the 601 do I recommend? I only know of one book. I went out to Amazon and just said, show me everything that's for the 601 that's coming and when. And I saw one in January. I saw a couple in March. There were some later in the year, like in May. But that's sort of normal. When the exams are released, we basically have only had a couple of months where we knew what the exam objectives were. So it takes time to create these courses. It takes time to write these books. It takes time to put all this content together. And so it very commonly, normally takes a lot of time to be able to put these together. So it takes months after the exam is actually released for there to really be a good section of study materials available, which is another reason I tell you, if you are planning to take the Security Plus exam, you should absolutely plan on taking the 501 as long as humanly possible. Now, I detail in that video I described earlier about why you should not wait for the 601. I explained that the 601 exam is 33% bigger. It's a third larger. The 501 exam was already big. Between the A+ Network Plus and Security Plus, it was already the biggest. Okay, well, let's make it a third larger than that. And only half of the 501 content is in it. So the other half of this content of this enormously large exam, brand new content. So it was like creating a brand new course on my side, practically. Certainly brand new course. When you size it against the A+ exams and the Network Plus exam, it really was like building a new course. So there's a ton of new content to have that there. So that's why I recommend take the 501 if you can. It disappears in July. You're never going to have another chance to take this easier exam. So what is the advantage of taking the 601? There's not one. There is no advantage to take the 601. It's a disadvantage to take the 601. That's why I keep telling people there's no advantage here. I guess if you wanted to twist it a little bit, the advantage would be that you are taking material that is 3 years newer than the 501, and you are learning material that is something that wasn't available 3 years ago. Have things changed that much? They haven't. There's a little bit more of a focus. The focus of the exam changed. They changed perspective of what they wanted to teach you. So, for instance, in the 501 exam, okay, here's an advantage if you were looking for one. The 501 exam, you have to know all of these different hashing algorithms. You have to know all these asymmetric and symmetric encryption algorithms. None of those are on the 601. So already I can feel you getting angry. None of that's on the 601. They decided, it's kind of silly that you would need to memorize AES, RC4, blowfish, twofish. Why would you need to memorize that? It just makes no sense whatsoever. Now you don't have to memorize it. The 601, you don't have to memorize anyway. I guess that's an advantage. You just now have to learn 30% more content before you walk into the exam. That's why I say it's not really an advantage, is it? It's not really. It's sort of an advantage, but not really. So there's your balancing act. I guess there's advantages and disadvantages, but there seems to be more advantages by far to take the 501 than there are advantages to take the 601. I just can't see why that would be the case. And that's why there's also not a lot of content out yet. So think about what you're going to need to study. Do you need books? Do you need videos? Do you need course notes? Do you need practice exams? All this takes time to create. So that's why when I mentioned this, you have until July 31st of 2021 for all of that and all of those things. So for those of you that say, yeah, I don't care what you say, I'm taking the 601 anyway, that's fine. That's sort of normal. That's what I hear all the time. So all I have to say is make sure you look around for at least the books and the materials available to you. You are at an immediate disadvantage, but you understand this. You know this going in. It is a disadvantage to take the 601 right now, but you really feel like you should be taking the 601. You're going to have to look around and grab those materials that are out there. So that's what I would recommend you doing too. If you like a challenge, well, you found it. You are there. Let's now go to the phone calls. Let's click on a few buttons. That's my challenge right now. And we'll go to the 210 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, Professor. This is Nee calling from the San Antonio area.
Hello, Nee. Thanks for calling.
Sure. I took my exam the first time. Earlier in the summer, I didn't make it. And then I kept studying again. I took it this weekend. And then I made it this time, so I'm very glad for that. And thanks for your help. I used your notes and your Q&A, so that was very helpful.
That's great. Congratulations on passing the exam, and congratulations on not stopping when you didn't make it the first time through and keeping it going. That is a success in itself.
Right. So I'm planning to. I'm still in school, but I'm planning to take the N class next, and then the CCNA routing and switching.
Excellent.
Because I've been listening to you've been talking about getting a good grasp of the networking part of it, So that's what I'm planning to do. I wanted to ask if you could point me with some resources I could use for the CCNA after I'm done with my N-class exam, and then, yeah.
There are so many CCNA resources out there to choose from. You'll find the popular videos and books. I think the book that everybody uses for Cisco that really is the best book to use is the Cisco Press book. That is sort of the one that is the primary reading material. It is comprehensive. It is literally 2 volumes now for the CCNA, because the CCNA has now been taken from 2 exams and crammed into one big exam. They did make the exam bigger. They just made the amount of information you needed to know for the exam much bigger. So the books that you have to study from are much bigger for that piece of it. But those are excellent books to get, are the Cisco Press books. And if you use those in conjunction with some hands-on, Packet Tracer is a great free option from Cisco, incredibly useful and incredibly powerful. And I can't believe it's free and they just give it out to everybody. But Packet Tracer is a fantastic way to immediately bring up any type of infrastructure configuration on your screen, move things around, configure a network real quick, and then you can freeze frame it, and one packet at a time you can watch as the packet steps through the network. It's remarkable. It's a fantastic utility, and it's perfect for the CCNA. So have a look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the 2 biggest resources I would recommend.
Okay. One final question. Do you think the knowledge from the N+ is going to help with the CCNA?
Absolutely. The problem you're going to find with the CCNA is just massive. It is such a big exam. It covers so many different topics, and it goes deep into these topics. You have to configure the switches, configure the routers, understand the routing protocols, understanding the switching technologies, really understand what's happening in real time with these systems. So if you already understand the terms, you have a foundational knowledge of what IP addressing is, you have a foundational knowledge of the technologies that you would plug into the network, you understand what a switch does, you understand what a router does, that's what Network Plus is there for. It is an entry-level networking certification. CCNA is not an entry-level networking certification by far. It is a next level up past your entry level. So if you can get a nice foundation with Network Plus, when you get to the CCNA, you can really concentrate on the CCNA level content and not have to worry now that you're starting from nothing and you're having to understand what's an IP address again, what's a subnet mask again. You already passed that point. Now you're configuring IP addresses. Now you're configuring subnet masks. That's what the best choice is. And I think that's a good way to approach it. You know, there are some people that will skip the Network Plus and they'll go right to the CCNA. And in that particular case, they're going to have to spend more time learning the fundamentals when they get to the CCNA side. So if you do that, just plan on more time to spend studying the CCNA and maybe be able to decrease that time by getting your Network Plus prior to that.
All right. Thank you very much once again for all the resources you make available to us.
Absolutely. Congratulations on your Network Plus. Best of luck with those networking certifications.
Sure. All right. Bye.
That is great to hear. And I think you've got the right approach. I like that you've got the security side of things. You're in classes now, earning the certification or earning your formal degree. And then you're thinking, okay, if I'm going to go into security, I better know a lot about the network, because you do. You have to know a lot about the network to be able to go there. You have to effectively be an expert in networking to be able to do anything in security, at least do it well from that perspective. So that's what I would recommend. Do I think the practice test from CompTIA website training material is worth doing? I just have no idea. I have very little time to finish what I've got. I don't even go out and look and see what other people have. Unless somebody presents me with something, sometimes I'll get an email that says, oh, in this book or in this thing, it said that the sky is banana. And then I have to say, well, that you need to ask that author why they say the sky is banana. Nobody sent me anything from CompTIA, so I have no idea what their exams are like. I've never looked at them. I've never bothered with them, but I just don't have time. So I don't know. That's my qualified, I don't know, that I can now give you. That is a professional answer that gives you everything that you needed to know about me not knowing anything about it. Let's go back to the phone calls. 262 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, good afternoon or good morning, Professor Messer. Juan Olvera calling from Madison, Wisconsin.
All right.
Long-time listener.
Hi, Juan.
Thank you. First of all, I passed my Security Plus in August of this year, studied since November, and your
Nice.
podcast, videos, books, and many materials contributed to that.
Oh, it's great. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm listening to you. I know you've got a lot of experience in the industry. I understand you had a lot of routing and issues, or I should say, my curious question is about the hack that just occurred. It's on the news related to SolarWinds and Sunburst. And I'm wondering if you just give a little insight. I'm curious as to, I understand digital certificates, I understand how the malware is placed, and I understand Microsoft went out and did something pretty phenomenal, but I guess I'm a little still new to this industry, so wondering if you can give a little overview on that.
What did Microsoft do that was phenomenal? I'd like to know. I think most of us would like to know that one.
Well, I guess the question is, I thought they did something to to respond or to mitigate that threat.
I think they were sort of put into a position where they needed to, and I guess they in that way or form they did. So let's kind of break this down into this craziness that has been happening just this month. This is all a December thing, but in reality, and in the reality with these types of situations, this is something that has been going on since the beginning of the year. So it's now almost a secondary story, but it's really the main story that earlier in December, Fire-i announced that some of the tools that they use when they work on their customers' networks was taken by a third party. Now, Fire-i, for those not familiar, Fire-i has been in the industry a long time. They have some very well-known sort of malware detection tools. They really have a set of have built over time these really nice virtualization environments where they can run executables in a sandbox. They can then report on whether that executable something is malicious or benign. And they have tools, and they have other tools as well, but they're probably even, in some cases, even more well-known for their research team. They are the people that when something bad happens on a network, especially a large network, they will parachute in with experts in security and experts in malware to understand how did this network become compromised, and then once the network was compromised, what is now affected on the network. And they are very well closely related to things happening in large companies and in governmental facilities. So these are experts. If you're looking for experts that know malware, the Fire-i people, they know malware. They understand this business. They know who the attackers are. They know what they're going after. You can't find really much better group than this to be able to break that down. Well, they announced at the beginning of the month, hey, somebody broke in and took our stuff. And we're all thinking, what? They broke into Fire-i and took your stuff? How did that happen? That's crazy. What did they take? And we sort of skipped over the part of how'd they do it because they weren't saying. Well, as it turns out, Fire-i is a customer of SolarWinds. They have not said this publicly. They've sort of said it privately to Krebs. Brian Krebs on KrebsOnSecurity.com reported that, the guys at Fire-i told me they got in through their SolarWinds stuff. Well, how that sort of brings up the bigger story that everybody sort of knows about now, which is in March of this year, what we suppose is a nation state gained access to the source code of the SolarWinds products, was able to put malware in the update packages that were sent out to customers and effectively poisoned the well, effectively did a watering hole attack, if you will, except in this case, kind of a reverse watering hole because they push out the water to everybody. It's a supply chain attack. They got into the supply chain at SolarWinds. You have all of these, SolarWinds even just mentioned 2 weeks ago on their earnings call, hey, we're in every large network in the world, every large network of note, we have our SolarWinds products in there. And so when these companies, and they estimate about 18,000 customers updated to the version of software that was malicious and effectively were able to use this software and get into these networks just by updating the software that they were running on their SolarWinds products. What a remarkable way to get into the network. What was even worse, and there's a nice write-up of this on the Fire-i Fire-i website is that they broke apart how exactly this malware operates, how it got on a network, and what it did. Once somebody updated SolarWinds, the malware was installed, and then it just sat there for 2 weeks and did nothing. I mean, whoever designed this, whoever went through the paces of this, they weren't messing around. And by the way, they weren't after money. This wasn't like the Twitter hack where somebody wanted you to buy Bitcoin. This is one where they were wanting to get onto a network, and they wanted to stay there a long time, and they wanted to gather information. They didn't want to do crypto malware. They didn't want to do adware, spyware. They wanted intel. And these attackers knew that the biggest companies in the world, the biggest educational facilities in the world, and the biggest governments in the world were going to be running this software. So probably the biggest mistake that the attackers made was they infected Fire-i, because that's how we found out that this thing happened. Fire-i, of course, has the experts in malware. They got attacked and said, how'd that happen? They tracked it back to sort the everything that was happening with the SolarWinds, and then they broke apart, and finally the story got out. So had the attackers maybe put some type of code to prevent it from showing up in a Fire-i, Palo Alto Networks type scenario, they would still be unknown. It'd still be on a network. We wouldn't know about it. But because they infected Fire-i, we now, suddenly this big story is now here. On the Fire-i website, in their threat research section, is a document on the 13th of December. We're recording this on the 17th. That talks about highly evasive attacker leverages SolarWinds supply chain to compromise multiple global victims with sunburst backdoor. And the intricacies of this were remarkable. This software not only sat around for 2 weeks before going out and talking to the command and control center, which, by the way, they made in local VMs running in an IP address that was in the same country as where it was infected. Genius. It also was taking things that were running on the platforms and swapping them out, and then doing their piece and then swapping the good piece back. So let's say task managers running on Windows, they would get rid of the task manager, put their task manager in place, do all the bad stuff, and then take their stuff down and put the good task manager back. All without writing any files to the file system. This was all done in memory. And so it was really genius how they went through this. So this was a well done, the term that everyone's using is sophisticated, because it was. This was a very sophisticated type of attack. We still don't know the extent of exactly who might have been have been infected, and then once they were infected, what might have happened after that. Now, what has happened in the last day is, and this was humorously reported on by the folks at GeekWire, and I mentioned this. This is humorous. The story at GeekWire is titled, "Microsoft Unleashes Death Star on SolarWinds Hackers in Extraordinary Response to Breach." It is a glowing, wonderful story about how the world saviors of Microsoft were able to save everyone against the evil empire. And I read the article, and indeed, Microsoft has now been given the control over the command and control domain name that was used for this. That's not really a thing. They just said, okay, now Microsoft's in charge of it. We've effectively sinkholed or blackholed the command and control mechanism. So if somebody did download the update now, and by the way, as of yesterday, or day before, you could still download the infected software from SolarWinds site. This has just been a mess all the way around. But if you did accidentally install that software, it would talk back to a command and control domain that's now under the control of Microsoft, so it won't go anywhere at this point. Now, if you're already infected, that's not going to help you. So, but at least we've now stopped any new infestations that way. Microsoft, and this was the part that confused me about this article. Yesterday, Microsoft updated Microsoft Defender because they had earlier in the week This was actually on the 13th. They put in Defender that if you were infected, Microsoft Defender would tell you that you were infected. It was set to detect an alert on this. This was the part that confused me. The part that this article talks about is that on the 16th, this would be 3 days later, Microsoft changed Defender to quarantine the malware rather than just alert that it's on your system. And they talk about this, that this is now the wonderful thing that Microsoft did was change this so that it would now delete the malware. That's what it should have done on the 13th, not on the 16th. So that was not a good thing, but they sure changed it into being a great story. Look how great Microsoft is that they changed this that would now delete the malware. It's supposed to delete the malware. That's what it's supposed to do. Oh, isn't just supposed to alert on it? This is not the end of the story. We don't know the depth. Oh, we do know a few more extra things today. And one that was really interesting, without talking the entire after show on this, the part that I find really interesting is in some of the government agencies in the United States, the attackers modified the Active Directory certificates in a way that would allow them to create their own certificates for a user, effectively bypassing the authentication for the email systems that would allow them to log into the email effectively as anybody. That is some cold, detailed cybersecurity, evil hacker stuff right there. And that takes somebody who knows what they're doing to be able to implement this in a way. So they effectively got into everybody's Outlook emails and have been collecting emails on these systems ostensibly since March. This is a bad hack. We still don't know how bad this one's going to be, but as bad as it is right now, it is most certainly going to be worse than this. New things are coming out all the time. New stories are coming out all the time. This was a miserable, horrible, awful hack where people now have access to material and have had access to the material for months, collecting this information on people's networks on these very large, very secure, very critical, and very important networks. So now what happens? Now we get to see just how far this goes. And it kind of extends even further. We sort of saw this with some of the things that happened with the Uber breaches years ago, is that these companies have these breaches and they don't react to it properly, or they react to it in a way that is disconcerting at best. A good example was the fact that the malicious software was still available for download on the SolarWinds website, even after the announcement of the SolarWinds hack occurring. But on top of that, there was a flurry of stock sales of SolarWinds, of people in SolarWinds, large holders of the stock, just prior to this being made public, that allegedly they already knew it was there. Maybe they knew it was there. Now we have to have more investigations to see if perhaps the trading of stock was done inappropriately. You know, sometimes it's not the hack, it's the fall that kills you. And there's going to be now a fallout from that we now have to deal with of those. So, and of course, it becomes political, because it was almost certainly a nation state that caused this. They're already talking about which one they believe it was, the group within the nation state they believe that it was. Was it or wasn't it? We don't have, they're not sharing the evidence of that with us, and we're never going to know the evidence with that. We kind of have to trust that they're doing that. But now I'm trying to stick to this was a bad hack in itself, no matter who did it. But now we all get to argue about who did it and why they did it and what they have and what we do from here. But if in the 601 certification exam, there's a big section that talks about and we talk about in the 501 too, we talk about that supply chain. And just this year, we have had articles about Cisco routers showing up that are fake Cisco routers. That's a supply chain problem. We've had stories like this where they've infiltrated the update process for a major software, a public company with this major set of software that's installed everywhere. This could not have been done any better. If you're a hacker, this could not have been done any better. They put it in March. We were all scrambling around to get our VPNs up and running. We were trying to buy laptops for everybody. We were in the midst of wondering how bad this pandemic was going to be for us and what the ramifications were. It was an awful time, and they sure took advantage of it. And boy, did they. They could not have done a better job at taking advantage of us at the worst possible time. It was a worst case scenario at almost every step of the way, and we still don't know how bad it is. So that's my sort of very long dissertation on just how bad this is. We're just now going to sit back and see if we can figure out the extent of this, and is it going to affect us? We really won't know the full effect of it because we won't know what they got and what it means, but it's going to be kind of a bad thing. I appreciate you asking the question, Juan.
Thank you. Really appreciate it, Professor. Everybody study hard, no matter what.
No matter what. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the call. That's the stories coming out. The stuff they did, there was a set of certificates they added to a SASL piece for Federation so that they were able to log in externally from their credentials into these people's local networks using the federated capabilities. Just awful, just horrible. I could not even imagine working at those companies, not only SolarWinds, but could you imagine being at these companies that were now these enormous organizations that were infected? You know, the standard process, when you get that level of infection, you burn it all down. You leave nothing standing. That is your best practice. You nuke everything because you don't know where it is now. So you just nuke it all and then you build it up. So it's going to be a tough holiday. It's going to be a tough December for all these people. And that's another good reason. If you've ever wondered, should I be in this business? This is why you should be in this business. You should be there to stop these folks. You should be there to when this type of thing happens, because it's going to happen. Now, how do you react to it? How do you minimize the impact? There will be some of these organizations say, oh, we need to rebuild everything. I just click this button here. Everything falls to the ground and gets rebuilt automatically. We're already planned for this. And they can do that. They can click the button and it's done. Maybe not everybody is set up that way. Maybe not they've set it up completely that way, but they've already gone through the process. They've already done tests. They've already done work to figure out what they need to do to make that happen. Other organizations are not in that position. And so they have a tough month or two ahead of them to be able to do that. We will see what comes of this, but boy, what a nasty, horrible thing. Well, I have bored a lot of people and they've terminated their calls and I apologize, but we will now go to the 207 area code. Thank you for holding for so long. Which name are you calling from?
Hey, how you doing, Professor? My name is Ethan. I'm calling from Maine. I took the Security Plus exam Monday the 7th. I was crushed. I got a 648.
Oh, so close.
This is after watching. Yeah, so close, and that's what I was kind of saying to myself. I like to think I was nowhere near my best. And I say that because I relied on the resources from CompTIA itself, the CertMaster. I don't know if you've seen that or not. I'm sure you have.
I've gotten reports.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm going to tell you right now that since the 7th, since my exam attempt, I bought your practice exams, and similarities between the two exams it's a lot you're a lot more spot on, so I thank you for that, and they've been a lot better. I guess one of the big questions I was wondering on, and I guess this applies to PBQs in particular, is partial credit a thing on this exam?
We just don't know. Someone asked this back when I did the performance-based question in the first part of the study group. Is that question did roll by in the chat room? I'm sorry I didn't fall back on that. But
No, you're good.
the CompTIA website has a frequently asked questions section in their support, and they have said, do you offer partial credit for these questions? And they said some questions yes, some questions no. It's kind of a non-answer.
Okay.
That's not really helpful at all.
Yeah,
CompTIA. But at least there's a section, there's a glimmer of hope, because they did say, yeah, there are some of these that, yes, it makes sense that this would be partial credit. And I think with some of the performance-based questions where you have, like the one I did today, there were 4 questions. Well, maybe you got 2 of them right and 2 of them wrong. It's a perfect place where you could have given partial credit.
Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah, that's like a question like that is a prime example, and I'm looking at the performance-based questions on exam C right now. And, these I'll say it right now for anybody that might be listening, your performance-based questions on your practice exams are much, much more similar than what I saw on the CertMaster. The CertMaster was kind of loose, and it didn't really target one particular thing. I'm certainly hoping. I'm taking the exam again on Saturday, this coming Saturday at 12:45. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I'd say nervous is an understatement. But I'd like to think with your additional practice exams and stuff as an additional supplement to what I already knew going into the first one, I'd like to think that now I'll get the extra 100 points that I need to get past this frickin' thing.
I think it's a different approach between my practice exams and what you might find somewhere else. I wanted to create a set of practice exams that they're all originally written. These are not questions I got from somewhere else or that I evolved because I took what other people had. I wanted to create all brand new questions because I wanted to really focus on particular topics. But I wanted to have the same style and kind of the same format. So if they do matching questions on the performance-based questions on the actual exam, I should have a matching question. It's not going to be the same matching question. It's going to be a different topic with different things to match, but you're getting the same perspective. You're getting the same feel of going through the paces as you would get in the actual exam. So when you show up and there's a matching question, you're like, oh, I've done matching questions before. Here we go. We'll just do this one. I think the approach that CompTIA tended to take with their 501 CertMaster series was that they wanted to teach you everything you needed to know so that no matter how the questions were asked, you would be able to answer them. But my approach was, I need to get you ready for sitting down during the exam and being prepared for not just the content, but how the content is being presented to you. So I hope we were able to at least get somewhere down that road with the practice exams. I think we did. But of course, CompTIA may change all of their performance-based questions. They may change the way they ask the questions. They might change their style of questioning all in general, and that's fine. So I think on their own, by themselves, standalone, my practice exam questions give you the information you need to answer any of the questions with any of the content, especially since I'm telling you why the answers were wrong. You're almost getting extra questions thrown in there, especially if you don't happen to get that one right. So maybe that will help too as you go through and prepare for this next set. And I bet you'll get that extra 100 points. And I'll bet you'll be able to pass it.
Right, because on my last one, on my first attempt, I'd say 3 out of the 5, at least, performance-based questions, I left them blank. And not to mention a pretty average performance on the multiple choices. So I'd like to think that now, having seen a variety of PBQs and the style of multiple choice questions that's in your practice exams, I'd like to think that I'll get those 100 points. I also thought it was a little strange that they don't, I guess I should have expected this, but I think it's a fine line between wanting people to succeed and also wanting to take their money. You might disagree with me on this one, but I was kind of disappointed that I wasn't able to look at my exam that I took on December 7th to just maybe like even one time just to see where I went wrong. Are we trying to produce good employees for the future, or are we trying to take these people's money?
It is a balancing act they have. That's kind of a standard thing in the industry that's not specific to CompTIA. It's the same for Cisco and Microsoft and Amazon and Google and everybody else.
Okay.
it's hard enough for them to prevent people from stealing their questions and publishing them and selling them on what is effectively the black market, except it's just right in front of everybody on the internet. So it's a way that they can kind of save their personal content, their copyrighted materials, and prevent somebody from abusing that. Otherwise, they'd have to just create all new questions every month, and there's just not enough time or capacity to do something like that. And it's kind of frustrating because it would be nice you've already gone through it. You've already seen the questions. You already know they're there. But unfortunately, not everybody is as honest as you and I and would keep them private and would not share them with someone else. And that's ultimately, I think, what they're trying to prevent.
Well, I certainly appreciate all the help that you've given me and stuff, because I've been working on this course since beginning of September. I watched all 140 videos. I've gone through, I've got 2 notebooks, and, I thought I was well prepared for the first one. I got a nice wake-up call on that. So I'd like to think since the December 7th attempt, I've been primarily focusing on your exams. Just real quick, because I know there are probably other people that want to ask you questions. I've taken up a lot of your time already. I just want to know, do you recommend anything else that might supplement my preparation before Saturday, or do you think I'm on the right track?
Well, I always say
the thing is when I've taken the exams, that your practice exams, I'll go through what I've gotten wrong, and then I'll write it all out, and I'll kind of write it out in my train of thought. And I like you said, the explanation of why some answers are wrong is certainly helpful, and that's something that has helped further my understanding. But I guess going back to my original question, do you think there is something that I could use on this short basis to supplement what I have been doing?
Well, of course, there's always 4 things in my mind that you need as a foundation for studying. And it's a good book or even multiple good books. It is a set of videos so that you can go back and look at some of the videos available and have somebody demonstrate. You can follow along with what people are doing as they're demonstrating the things that they're going through. It's a set of Q&A, so you can test yourself to see if you've learned everything. And then it's a set of labs. And those are the sort of the 4 things, are all of those pieces. I have on my site the practice labs. Those are the ones that I tend to use whenever I'm going through this, because they'll set up routers and switches and Windows and Linux, and they'll have you create IPsec tunnels and step through doing private public key. Some of the things that you see in the exam objectives, they're more practical with showing you how that's actually working, which is kind of nice to be able to practically install an IPsec tunnel, to practically set up and use these private keys and public keys, to do some hashing, to kind of get a feel for how that works. That may be the last thing to put into it, which is, all right, I've now physically run through these labs. I've physically been at a command line and run the trace route command and run through the pings and do the things that are for the NS lookups and the digs. Those help solidify some of the things you do. But those are the 4. If you got those 4 covered, you're in good shape.
All right. Well, listen, thank you very much for all you do for us. And I hope to give you some good news after Saturday.
I bet you will. Thanks, Ethan. Best of luck.
All right.
That's challenging, but of course you don't fail until you stop. So as I've mentioned many times, there were a number of different cases where I would take a certification exam and just fail. There's one I failed twice. I had to take it 3 times before ever passing it. That's frustrating. And it's angering and it's embarrassing. There's all these things. But you just don't quit. You're like, okay, failed that one. I'm a dummy. Kind of just own it. Okay, I did that one horribly. Let's see if I can learn from that, and let's take it again. That's a good place to be whenever you're stepping through those. That's this. Can I talk the naming changes for the 501? The 501, the 601, and I think some of the other exams too, they made those naming changes 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, earlier in the month. That's how recent it is. And they just changed the names of everything so that it's different. I'll tell you what they are right now. I think I've got it listed in my spreadsheet for Security Plus because I had to go through and change everything. So the things that changed were, do I have it on here? I say I have it on here. Am I looking at the 601? I am. And did I put a comment? I don't think I did. I thought I did at one point, but I guess oh no, these aren't the exam objectives. Those are my video stats page. Stand by, please, while I find one of the myriad spreadsheets where I put all the objective information in. There we go. Well, I'll just show this to you. Since we're on this interactive internet thing, I'll bring it over and you can have a look at what I do here. So welcome to my world where I have taken all the SY0-501 exam objectives. I have added the SY0-601 videos that I'm creating, and then I put in all the objectives listed in here. So in every place they changed a word or removed things. So for instance, in version 2, they removed some things. So man in the middle and man in the browser have been renamed to on-path attacks in the version 2 of the exam objectives. White hat, black hat, and gray hat are no longer in there. It's now authorized, unauthorized, and semi-authorized. Close enough. We'll take it. That's, let's see what else. What else is purple? We'll keep scrolling through, scroll. White box, black box, and gray box are now the known environment, the unknown environment, and the partially known environment. Not the semi-known environment. Oh, no, they mixed it up there. Drones used to be called unmanned aerial vehicles, which are really a different thing than what they were talking about, by the way. Now they're just drones. So they changed the word there. Scroll. They removed hardware security module and CASB in V2. Scroll. Let's keep going. It's a big exam, isn't it? They changed to drones. Drone/AVs were changed to drones. We talked about that. Man traps are now access control vestibules. Please step into the access control vestibule. No more man trap. The demilitarized zone is screened subnet, but then in the exam objectives, they literally put in parentheses, previously known as demilitarized zone. So maybe they didn't remove it completely. It's previously known as the DMZ, but it is the screened subnet. They got rid of another thing there. Let's keep going. Whitelisting and blacklisting. Now the world's a much better place. It's the allow list and the block list, or block list and deny list. They'll accept either one of those, which are actually a little more descriptive. Some of these are more descriptive. You really can't complain about that. DMZ they got rid of. Screen subnet. Let's DMZ a couple times. Keep going. They got rid of that. Not important for 601. It's not there. So see, we're still scrolling, everybody. What other things did they change? Is that it? Are we going? We're getting near the end. That's it. We got to the end. That is what changed in this exam, word-wise. Those were the things that were updated. These are my stats at the end, by the way. There are 1,038 objectives on the SY0-601. 529 of them are new that were not in the 501, which means that 50.96% is brand new. I don't like percentages. I like the raw numbers. 529 new objectives. That's huge because there were 778 objectives on the 501, which means, the difference in between 1038 and 778, 133%. It's 33% larger. It's bigger. It's bigger. So those same terms, I was going through the 601 exam objectives, but those same terms are also changed on the 501. So not that much, that was it. Man trap. It's a gender term. It's a man trap, or it implies. It's an implication of gender. So that's why we don't use that. And access control vestibule just sounds cooler. That's what that is. We needed cooler names, and that's what that is. So there's your summary. Let's go back to the phones and talk to, maybe if I click the button properly, the 717 area code. Hi, caller. Which name are you calling from?
Hey, Professor Messer. This is Matt, Pennsylvania. Well, first I wanted to give you a thanks. I actually have my Security Plus exam coming up on Saturday, but I watched all your videos in the 501 playlist, and I feel pretty good going into Saturday. What I was going to say is I'm in kind of like a weird, well, wouldn't say it's a unique situation, but I feel a bit more prepared than a lot of people that this is pretty much like an entry level Network Plus and Security Plus. A lot of people who aren't yet in the industry. I was working as a network engineer for several years, and now I'm currently working in a security role.
Nice.
I'm fortunate that, I have an employer that's willing to assist with certifications. And so there's kind of an extra layer of obligation there when your employer is footing the bill. You feel like you don't want to waste their money, so you feel extra obligated to pass. But really, it's one of those things where I've never really taken a certification exam. It's been a while since I've taken a standardized test.
Okay.
So your videos were beyond helpful, if just not for like a refresher. What I was going to ask basically is, knowing that kind of I'm on the road towards probably like CISSP or something like that, I often struggle with, I hate the idea of taking tests or getting education just for the sake of getting education. At this point in my career, I would like to actually have something that's applicable, that actually I'm using it not just as a thing that bolsters my, credentials, but also that I can actually use it. So, I mean, I know that there's some like uber technical ones on a track like the OSCP, but like what would you recommend? I know this is kind of a loaded question of someone that, it looks good for our clients to say, oh, you've got someone at the company that has a CISSP, but also that's sort of like the SAT, where it's just a test that sees how good you are at taking tests. What's some good educational resources for a security professional that is not, been in it a couple of years, but trying to get better and get some new skills? Like, what do you recommend?
All right. Well, first, who do you think you are trying to learn something for personal use and not doing that for climbing up the corporate ladder? How dare you? What a good idea, though. And it's an aspect of certifications that I don't think a lot of people sometimes even consider. And Matt, you're absolutely right. Why are we not focusing more on take this certification because it's having you learn something valuable that's going to help you be a better person, that's going to help you be a better technologist, that's going to make you more excited about the technology you use day to day. Those are the things that our certification should be doing. But of course, there is a checkbox, if you will, that is an important aspect of certification exams. It's one of the reasons certification exams exist, so that employers don't necessarily have to sit you down and see if you happen to know these things. There's a balancing act with certifications and what they can provide. So at least it gives everyone a starting point. If you've earned your Security Plus certification, we can pretty much guess of a lot of different kinds of certs. Does the certification mean that you know everything there is to know about security, or even everything there is to know about the topics on the Security Plus exam objectives? Of course not. But nobody is expecting you to do that. And I think that us trying to put a label on certifications that somehow qualifies someone based on a certification is a little bit of an overreach. I think it's maybe us wanting that. I think it would be great if that was there, but I think we often give certifications too broad of a description of what they provide. There are some very specific things that certs can do for a person, and there's certain things that certification obviously will not do. But I like your concept, though, of I want to find a cert that matches what I'd like to learn. And I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do, as long as you're not also hoping that combines with, is it what I need to do for my job, which is a different question. So and I mean,
it doesn't necessarily have to be a cert that I'm looking for. I mean, it could just be, a course that doesn't lead to extra letters after my name.
Right.
Are there any resources that, even like, YouTubers or things that, I mean, I learned pretty much like everything these days through YouTube, but like, is there anything that you could recommend that's like maybe more of like a technical track in security that you would recommend? Like I kind of lack some of the technical stuff as far as like, pen testing and stuff on like the Kali Linux side that I would love to dive in more, just to, you know, sharpen my tool set. You know, like are there any particular ones that you would recommend?
You know, if I was going to I wanted to get into security, I wanted to know more about working with IT security, and I wanted to get some certifications that would prepare me versus me trying to prepare for a job, which we'll talk about in a moment. But if I just wanted to get foundational knowledge in this line of work, I would focus in two separate areas. One would be the security side of things, and I might even focus I'd put security into the cloud as well, getting some Amazon certifications and Cisco cloud certifications and Microsoft cloud certifications would be pretty valuable from a security perspective right now. Certifications from specific manufacturers might be good as well, for a Palo Alto Network certification, a Checkpoint certification, a Cisco security certification. Those are very good too. But the other place I think I would also focus, and a place that I think security people are sort of missing, and we kind of talked about it on an earlier call, was the networking side of things is so incredibly important. Having either a Cisco CCNA or a comparable personal knowledge of managing switches and routers and the protocols and technologies that run on switches and routers is a must. It's a requirement. You have to know that if you're ever planning to work in IT security. There's way too much planning and developing and implementation and integration that happens on the network. You have to know those things. So if I was right now in that position trying to figure it out, I'd go get the Amazon or Microsoft or Cisco certification, because I know that would help me in my career and working in IT. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that's what employers are looking for. There may be a completely different thing they want. And sometimes those worlds don't collide. Sometimes they're very different worlds. So you may end up having to do two different things. I remember working as a systems engineer at a network analysis company at Network General, and my focus was implementing network management in corporate and larger networks, primarily distributed network and distributed technologies, distributed packet analysis. And that's what we were doing at that time. And I went and I got a Microsoft's, the MCSE at the time. It was back in the day, prior to the latest versions of Windows. But you had to go through 6 different certifications. And I learned about the overall infrastructure of Microsoft's server environment. I understood the protocols. I learned about the security and the Active Directory and the management. And it made me a better engineer for what I was doing during the day, because when somebody was talking to me about managing a Microsoft network at the protocol level, I could talk about the entire ecosystem because I understood the entire ecosystem. That really helped me. My employer didn't ask me to go get a Windows MCSE. They didn't even want me necessarily to get one. But I wanted to have it because it was a type of technology that interested me. And I think that's kind of the thing you're asking about, is how do I find the things that are going to make me a better technologist? Whether that applies to my job or not, it's not important. But for security, it's the cloud, it's some of the higher level security technologies, and it's about the network. I think those are great places to go.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I was a network engineer for several years, so I kind of got that one. But the vendor specific ones are really I think that's a really smart thing to do. Whether you're a Cisco shop, Palo shop, go for whatever applies to your job. I think that's really good advice. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Best of luck, Matt.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. Saturday, so I'm feeling good. I thank you for all your help.
We're sending good vibes your way. Best of luck.
Appreciate it. Have a good day.
It's one of those things in the industry too with security certifications, is that once you kind of get the foundational certs, they sort of break up into kind of smaller manufacturer certs. And I think employers tend to look for that. Oh, do you have this Palo Alto Network cert? Do you have the Cisco cert? Do you have the Checkpoint cert? They tend to ask about those too. So that's the way it works. Before we go back to the calls, I see their caller. Thanks for holding. from the chat room, all important question. What are these in-ear monitors that I'm using? I documented everything on my website, professormesser.com/studio. And there's a link on the homepage to the studio equipment under the other section, professormesser.com/studio. And I think I forget what they are. They're very basic, non-boosty, kind of flat line in-ear monitors. I mean, we're talking less than $100 type thing, but they're comfortable. And I added on some different foam earpieces because I'm sitting here for hours at a time talking to you. But I only use them when I am shooting video so I can hear what is going on the video. That's incredibly important. And then when I'm live, so I can hear what you're hearing. Otherwise, I don't wear these. Otherwise, I've got speakers. Can you see this? You can't see the speakers here. But otherwise, there's some big speakers. There's some big monitors. As we say in the industry, that is right there. That you should that I normally would use. So when I disable the microphone, the way the mixer works, mixer is amazing. This is an Axia mixer that when I turn off the input for my mic, the speakers automatically turn on. And when I turn on the mic, the speakers turn off. So just a fantastic thing. There's just a great setup that's here. But if you're ever wondering what is all this stuff that's around here, I try to document everything so you'd know what camera am I using, what earpiece am I using, what mouse and keyboard. Do I have the mouse and keyboard on there yet? Probably not. I need to put the mouse and keyboard on there. But that's what I'm running. So you're aware. Let's go to the 781 area code. Hi, caller. Which name are you calling from? Caller.
Hello, I'm Dayton, calling from London.
Oh, from London calling. Thanks for calling.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for taking my call. I've been meaning to try and catch you. I keep missing your these sessions because I'm always at work. So, but now I'm off work, so I had a great opportunity to give you a call. I have a question. It's in relation to the Core 2 exam.
Sure.
The first one was about the compare and contrast features of the Microsoft Windows version. I'm trying to figure out what I need to memorize or study towards purely on the Windows 7, Windows 8, 8.1, and Windows 10. I'm just struggling to figure out what I need to know for when it comes up in an exam. That's the area I'm kind of like, I've been going through all the books, I've been watching your lectures and stuff, and I'm still like, I don't know what I need to know for the exam. So I was just wondering if you can give me any sort of advice in relation to what I kind of need to know.
Yeah, they don't do a great job on the exam objectives of telling you what you need to know and how you want to differentiate this. And I'll show other folks that haven't seen this before. This is from the 221,002 exam objectives. It asks to compare and contrast features of Microsoft Windows versions. So how many features are in Microsoft Windows? I don't know, 10,000. There's 10,000 features in Windows, right? And they list Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 8.1, and Windows 10. That makes sense. You're probably going to run into mostly Windows 10 these days, but you will still find people still running Windows 7 and still running Windows 8, and it will be your responsibility to upgrade them. What I kind of took it as is at a bare minimum, these 5 things that are listed next, which is domain access, BitLocker, Media Center, branch cache, and EFS. That's all they listed in the exam objectives. So that's the only thing I took as being something they could possibly ask me about. Could they go beyond this scope? I guess they could, but as we already mentioned, there's so much in Windows to try to balance out that there's just no way to figure those things out. But at least those 5 things were clearly, specifically mentioned in the list of exam objectives. So if I had to compare and contrast those features, and you'll notice in my videos, those are the 5 categories I use when I compare Windows 10, Windows 8, Windows 7, and all of the editions of those, so that you at least know in what edition of Windows 10 can we run branch cache, in what edition of Windows 10 can I run EFS, so that you at least have that familiarity. I probably wouldn't take it any farther than that. Like I usually say, if it's not in the exam objectives, don't bother learning it. Don't go down that road. There's so much more in the exam objectives that are going to be listed that you could be spending your time on. So that's what I would recommend, is stick with those 5 things. I bet you'll be fine.
Oh, excellent. That, because the last few weeks I've just been trying to figure out what they're going to ask me. There's so much things I need to know about all these different window versions, but with those, that's fine. That's helped me a lot. Just on the command preps, the command lines for Microsoft. I've got the training provider I work with. They provide live labs, and I've been using the command, learning about them, and getting a lot of practice in and that. I've noticed in some of them that they've told me to do a certain task, and they've added all this long line of address to help me understand how the command is used. Just for the exam, so the objectives in the core 2, is that what I just need to focus on? I don't need to focus on anything else apart from the objectives that are set out on there. So, for example, a question could be someone's trying to find out where does they want to track their connection. They can use, like, the my answer would be they can use the track. Is it the track cert command to track where their connection is going to? That makes sense.
Yeah, and it's if it's not listed in the exam objectives, do not even bother with that. Now, if they're asking about traceroute or netstat or an slookup or check disk or format, I mean, there's plenty to learn that's in the exam objectives. There's no reason you have to go even farther than that. If it's not listed, if it's not specifically listed in this list of command line tools, do not bother. You're not going to see it on the exam. It's not going to be something you need to know. Don't even worry about that piece of it. Know these commands extremely well, and you'll do fine.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you. Just one more thing. I've got your note. I ordered your notes, the Core 2 notes ages ago, before you released your practice test Core 2 exam notes. Is there still a way I can still order the practice exam notes for Core 2? Can I still order that, like, separately? Because I've already got your course notes for Core 2.
You can order it separately, and if you ordered the original before the practice exams came out, let me know, and I can send you a coupon for getting the bundled price and paying a little bit less than having to buy it as if it was brand new.
Okay, I'll just send you an email then, just saying that I bought the notes so long ago. Yeah,
from the top of my site, hit the contact us link. Just send me a note that way. It all comes directly to me, and I'll send you back a coupon.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Professor. You have a good Christmas, and if I've got any more questions, I'll speak to you in the new year.
Best of luck. Thank you for calling. That's fantastic. The idea also behind this, and that's something that applies to everybody, by the way. If you bought the course notes of mine before, because I create the course notes before I even shoot the videos. Then I shoot the videos, then I usually create the practice exams. So if you got my course notes before the practice exams were available, you'll notice you can buy both the course notes and practice exams together at a little bit of a discount. But if you already bought the course notes, you can't get the discount, but I'll give you a discount. So just send me a note and I can give you the discount if that's your situation, to be able to have there. So question in the chat room. I noticed there were no videos on SYN floods or IV in the 501. There's some talk about initialization vector in the 501. SYN floods, I don't know if we talk about SYN floods specifically, but floods and denial of service is mentioned on the 501. And I almost say on the 501, there's like things like DNS amplification are mentioned. Definitely talk about distributed denial of service and denial of service. So those are on the exam objectives. Yeah. For those of you wondering, the exam objectives page on my site that I keep referring to just so everybody sees where this is. If you go to the Professor Messer website, where the objectives are, professormesser.com/objectives. There are objectives here that kind of break down differences between earlier versions and later versions. But what I'm talking about is this link here that says, click here to be redirected to the exam objective page on the CompTIA website. So that's the link I'm talking about. That's a link. See the little hand? So that takes you there. If you click on that, it takes you to this page. So that's what I'm talking about when I say the objectives are there. I don't keep the objectives on my site because, as we just mentioned, the objectives are just constantly changing, and I would prefer that you look at that on the CompTIA website where it's always going to be updated. When's the 601 course available? Well, parts of it already are on the Professor Messer website. There's a SY0-601 security link right at the top. The course is available for the first 11 videos. 11 videos are there. So we're just rolling them out. The course notes are already available. I've got another, 10 videos in the can. I'm shooting more this weekend. So right now we're just churning them out. There's just tons of videos coming on the 601. It's just a matter of putting them out there now. And they're really good. I loved the 501 course I did. This is just more of it. There's just better, get to hone it a little bit better as we go. So I'm hoping it will be just as good, if not that much better than the 501, and getting those there. They're all on my website, and there's a playlist on YouTube and all those things. You can find all of that there. Once that's done, how many videos is it going to be? It's going to be, if I go look at my list of videos, where is it? For the 601, we're through 11, and there's going to be 176 videos. So if you're looking for videos, I'm going to be making some videos. 166 more of them. So there you go. There's a lot that's there. I don't know necessarily that the 501 videos are shorter than A+. Some of them are, at the very beginning, are split up to be kind of smaller, but some of these are going to be kind of big. The videos that are demonstrations of some of these technologies, because there's a lot more labby type videos in the 601 where you have to know how to use open source intelligence software. You have to really understand more about software that's able to find different things on the network. It's just big. So you will get some larger videos once we get through those, but I try to keep them, my goal is to have them all less than 15 minutes. It's just some really get over that. I just can't stop it. It's just going to be that way. So we'll see. When we get to that point, we'll see how long they are. My objective when I finish them is I tend to start cutting them up. So if it goes super long time, they turn into 2 separate videos, or I just start getting rid of stuff that doesn't make sense for you to even know about. Sometimes I'm putting things in there. Wouldn't it be cool to do this? Well, it might be, but it has nothing to do with the certification. So that is both an advantage and I guess a disadvantage of my course, is I'm giving you exactly what you need to know to pass the exam. Some people would prefer getting more content, and I absolutely understand that. But there are places you can go to get that. This is going to give you exactly what you need to pass the exam. So that's the difference. And that's my focus anyway on this. There's some times where, I don't know, I think we're going back over some of these others too. I think I'm adding a little bit more context to the 601 videos so that instead of jumping right into, for instance, I just finished the password attack video. Well, instead of just saying we do brute force, I kind of take you through an example of here's all the hashes and here's what a brute force attack does. So there's a little more context around it. I don't know. We'll see if that works out. I don't want it to be so big and long you're sick and tired of watching this. After 176 videos, how can't you be? Of course you're going to be sick and tired of it. But you'll be as little as you can be after 176 videos. So that's how it is. And I get it that longer videos are just a pain. And these are the types of videos that really do need to be Here's exactly what you need. You're in. Here's what you need to know. You're out. If you got 10 minutes, boom, hit it. If you got 7 minutes, there you go. And then you can get off to the next thing. So that's the goal. Would it be useful to review the 601 videos to get more context for the 501? I would not recommend that. Maybe on this first set of videos where there's really a one-to-one match, but so much of the exam objectives have blended together. Let me give you an example, because we were just looking at these exam objectives. Let me show you as we go through the objectives what I mean. So some of these are pretty straightforward, but if you were to watch the 601 video on phishing, it would also include content on smishing. That is an exam objective in the 601, smishing. So smishing is a new objective. It was not in the 501. If you watch my video on also on phishing, no, farming's not new. I think it is in the 501. I think it was on the 7, the Network Plus. Farming was in there. But farming I have is here as a new topic. Other things like identity fraud, invoice scams is a new section in the social engineering attack video that's not in the 501. It's not in the 501 exam objectives. So if you watched the 601 videos, you would be getting content that is unnecessary if you're taking the 501 exam. And the problem is it's sort of sprinkled in almost every video this way. They went in and changed everything. They didn't just add on new stuff. They changed everything. Very little is exactly the way it was. You just can't take the old videos, move them over, and then make new videos for what isn't there. You can't do it. It doesn't work. It's just like attack vectors. Some of it's there, other parts of it are new. So it's frustrating to kind of when I sat down and said, well, can I just make new? You can't. I can't just make new stuff. So that's why they are brand new videos, very specific. If you're taking the 501, watch the 501 videos. If you're taking the 601, watch the 601 videos. Do not mix and match. So that's my recommendation. I don't know what this is, but don't do that. So that's my idea there. Don't do that piece of it. You watched the videos and studied 501 for 5 years. Well, it's been out for 3, so you're amazing. You never took the exam. Should you hurry up and take the 501 so you can more likely pass? Yes, by July 31st of 2021. What port numbers do you need to know for the 501? There are no port numbers listed in the SY0-501 exam objectives. That's my official answer. Don't study any of them. I don't know why you're studying any of them. Why? I know that other people tell you need them. They're not in the exam objectives. If not in the exam objectives, why are you studying them? That's the answer. Might you get port numbers on the exam? You might. You could. I guess it's expected that you should know some of them because you're at that level. But there's no port numbers in the exam objectives. I know. That's sort of it. If you find any in the exam objectives, you're welcome to point them out to me. There aren't any. So that's where I'm going with that. So I know that people tell you, you should know these port numbers for the exam. Actually, CompTIA says you don't. And I'm going with what CompTIA said. You could spend the rest of your life studying what's not in the exam objectives. Why are you doing that? Don't do that. So that's my recommendation. Back to the phone lines. Hi, caller. Which name are you calling from?
Superman.
That's you. Hello, caller. Are you there?
Hello.
Hello. Thank you for calling. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Myron.
Do you have a question?
Myron.
Oh, Myron. Thanks for calling. Fire away. You're welcome to ask your question, Myron. Go ahead.
I'm really horny.
Do you have a question? Is there something? Myron's not, he's having a difficult time of it, I think. We'll put you back in the queue and you can give it a shot. See what's going on there. Maybe it was asthma. Not sure what's going on there. I'm sensitive to that. We'll figure it out. That's why, I think there's some port numbers you already know. You already know port 80 and port 443. You already know, port 22. There's some you just already know. So I think that's what CompTIA is assuming as well, is that the ones you already know, we could possibly put it in a scenario where you would have to answer that. But they're not going to spend a lot of time on those details to get figure out the details of that piece anyway. So that's what I would focus or recommend you focus on as well. Let's go to 202 area code. Hi, caller. Which name are you calling from?
Yeah, hello.
Thanks for calling.
My name is Felix. I'm calling from Washington, D.C.
Hello, Felix from Washington, D.C. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you? You may want to listen into the phone and not the
right now
other
I'm
piece.
studying. Right now I'm studying A plus, network plus, security plus at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah, but I find it so difficult.
Yeah.
Because of I have 3 kids in the house, and it's sometimes they don't really give me the time to study, and so I always listen to you whenever you want to do your class. I always follow you up and all that. So I'm just looking for advice. How best should I study to make sure I pass my exams when I'm ready? Is there any advice you can give me how to go about, considering with the 3 kids I have in the house? It's been so difficult, especially since this pandemic.
I am curious on your study method. Maybe you can fill us in on the details, because it sounds like you're doing a whole lot of different things at one time. Is there a particular reason why you're studying for A plus, Network plus, and Security plus simultaneously?
When I opted for the program, because they advised me to, instead of getting only A plus, so it is better for me to do the whole thing as a package. And actually, it's cheaper where I'm doing it. Doing the whole package is cheaper, and instead of doing one and later jump into the other one. So I decided to do the whole thing together. When I'm done with one, I jump into the other one, then study and go for the exams whenever I'm ready. But during this pandemic, the kids are home. It's difficult taking care of kids, studying at the same time. So I'm just, is there any advice on me how to go about the whole thing to make sure that I keep the track rolling?
Yeah, Felix, you're going to have to get rid of your kids. I think that's pretty much what it's going to have to be. It's time. They're kind of big. They can take care of themselves. We can get them right out the door. It is challenging, isn't it? I have 3 kids. Yeah. And growing up, they're little, they're kids, they have to, they're requirements. There are things that have to be done. There are responsibilities you have to take care of, and there's things that you kind of have to focus on. And it does interrupt studying, and it does interrupt all these other things. And it is a challenge. There are a couple of people that I've talked to about this very thing, and they had interesting strategies that they did. And it was basically my strategy too. My strategy was always, I did it late at night. I was just tired all the time. I just did not get enough sleep ever, but I just knew it was going to be that way. So for me, you get the kids to bed, and then I've at least got all night. I've got, X hours. I can now work through this. Other people I've talked to who were clearly not like me, but their DNA was built differently, that were morning people. And they said, I would get up at 5, and instead of going to work out at the gym, I would study for 2 hours. And then when the kids got up at 7, then I could help with the things they needed to do with the kids. So they were getting it done in the morning for what they were doing. Maybe it's just a style or the problem. And I understand it's sort of complicated now because the kids used to go to school. They used to go to an event. They used to go to the movies. They used to go out to the parks. And now they aren't really doing that anymore. We're all kind of stuck at home with each other, looking at each other and having to deal with these things with each other. So I think it's more about timing. You either find a way when they are sleeping or otherwise not in your face to get that study time in, and it's just going to take a little longer. You've got a bit of a complicated scenario there because it sounds like you've got a program you're in it's on a particular time frame. You need to get this done at a particular time. So that just may complicate things a bit, but I think it's all about before and after during the day. That may be the best way to approach it, Felix.
Yeah, maybe yeah. I think I'm going to try the midnight stuff. You know, I'll see because normally when I do the classes online, I do the 10 of them. I do their classes online from 8 o'clock in the morning. I will be on the computer with them until almost 2 p.m. You know, so from 2 p.m. they start eating their lunch. Before you know it, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock.
Yep.
Like the whole day will be like nothing. Yeah, but I've tried a couple of times to read at night. It's really difficult, but I think I have to program myself to be able to read at night. I think that would be the best shot.
I think it's one of those where you're in a certain zone, you're in a certain way of doing things. It's the normal cycle during the day. Now we kind of have to create a new cycle. We kind of have to create a new thing that during the day. And I think once you get it going, I think you'll fall into place and it'll just become the normal thing. But it's that process of getting it started. And I agree with you, Felix. It's a challenge.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Professor. I appreciate your help.
I appreciate the call. Best of luck. That's always a challenge if any of you have kids and doing this. My kids are now grown up. One of them lives outside the house. The other two are, well, I can't get rid of them. They're here. That's fine. We like having them here in case they watch. No, you could stay. But when they were little, you know, they have to be transported places. You have to feed them. You have to make sure that they get educated. Those are challenges. They take time. There's responsibility, and it's a juggle. For me, it was about my wife took a huge part of the responsibility on that so I could work on this. And we sort of switched off different responsibilities so we can make that happen. It never goes as fast as you hope it would, though. But even now, it doesn't go as fast as I hope it would. And I'm doing this just me all day in a room, and I'm not able to get through as much as I want to get through. So that's another challenge, is it's never going to be as productive as you want it to be. So, no, I did not say wait to have kids until you get your certifications done. That's not what I said. But because I would not change the timing of having all my kids and doing all those things and getting, I'm married up, thankfully. So, you have to find someone brilliant who can manage the world and deal with your nonsense, and then you'll be fine. It's such a simple thing to go through that. Maybe that's the approach that we should all focus on, is getting those done too. This was the last SY0-501 study group. I'm putting a stake in the ground right here. Really wasn't quite sure until we were done with this, but we really are done with the 501. That does not change my recommendation that says you should go take the 501 until it's no longer available. The 501 is an incredibly it's so much easier than the 601 is going to be, that I really think you should focus on the 501 until the last possible moment. Now, I know some of you are not, but at some point we have to transition to 601, and this is going to be the 601 transition. So in January, we will have 601 study groups available. You will still be able to go back and look at the 3+ years of 501 study groups that are on the Professor Messer website and on our playlist. They will always be there. And much of the topics we discuss in the 601 study groups, half of them will also apply to 501 because half of those topics are still in the 501. So there will still be some of that. So if you watch us live, you'll still get something out of that. Trust me, it will be good. And by the way, July's coming quick. We'll be at the end of July, and we'll keep this going for the 601 for quite some time. It's going to be rapidly approaching, and we'll be long past it. So we'll see. We'll have to figure out where to go from there. But I think that's a pretty good strategy. We'll start in January. There's a couple of books out by then. Everybody's going to start going that approach. I think that's the idea. If you're someone who is just starting on Security Plus and you're trying to figure out, do I want the easier exam or do I want the harder exam? 501 is the easier exam. 601 is the harder exam. Some people say, I want the newest exam. And I get that. That's absolutely an appropriate idea and thought and perspective. So I would, of course, if you're taking the 601, just make sure you get all the 601 materials you can. There's not much left. There's not much to choose from. So get the book that happens to be available right now. I guess in January, there'll be 2 books available right now. So that's, I think, the approach that you should take as well, is find everything you could possibly need. People are taking the 601 right now. People are passing the 601 right now. So you just have to make sure you have the right study materials. And of course, my course notes are out. The videos will be done shortly. I'm going to make some practice exams for it. We'll keep the study groups going. We'll give you also the resources you need to pass your 601, because come July, that's your only choice anyway. So that's the approach. I think once you get through the exam objectives and you understand it all and you're ready to take the exam, that's when you go take it. That's the real key to me. Always go back to the exam objectives to figure out if that's what you're ready to do. It will tell you. If you can list off and cross out everything that's in the exam objectives, you will be ready for this. I don't tend to take the exams. Instead of me taking the exams, I don't sign the candidate agreement and therefore am not restricted on what I'm able to say about the exams. So that is why I generally don't take them. I have considered taking the 601, but I'm still going back and forth on that. I'm still not sure I want to take the 601. I used to take all of them up to that point, and I have stopped doing that really just for legal reasons. I'm not a CompTIA partner. I can say whatever I want about CompTIA without any concerns whatsoever. If they do something good, I'll tell you. If they do something bad, I'll tell you. If there's something on their exam I like, I will tell you. If there's something on their exam I don't like, I will tell you. And I am not restricted by any legal agreement to do that. And I think that's, I prefer that level of independence, which is why I don't take the exam. I feel like it does restrict what I'm able to tell you. So that's the only reason. But has that really restricted me in the past? Not really. So if it hasn't, should I just go ahead and take the exam so at least I know some of the things that I wouldn't know if I didn't? That's the pluses and minuses. We'll find out in January. Come back in January. See if I did it. We'll figure out the details. Now it's so easy because you can sit at home and just I probably can't sit here and take the exam. They won't let me sit at this desk and take the exam, but I could probably grab my laptop and sit in a room and take the exam and I'd be fine. So maybe I'll consider doing that. And maybe I take it and I don't pass. Maybe I intentionally fail so I can take it again. So those are the dumb things that go through my head, is why would I want to pass it? Wouldn't I want the option to take it again so I could go through the questions again? This is why I don't take it. It's because I now go down this road, and what's the point of doing all those pieces? So no, that's not what we do. It's not my perspective. What is the benefit for taking the newer version? The benefit is that you can have the personal knowledge of a job well done. You've now taken the newer exam. The content of the newer exam is slightly different. There is much more of a focus on machine learning and cloud-based technologies and some of the newer security things in the industry, because things have updated and gotten better in the last 3 years. So there's some advantage to that. But from a cert perspective, there is no difference. When you pass the 501 exam, you earn a Security Plus. When you pass the 601 exam, you also earn the Security Plus. You earn exactly the same thing. So there's no benefit from a cert perspective. The piece of paper you earn is identical. So there's no difference. The piece of paper doesn't say you took the 501. It's the 501 cert. No, it's just the cert. So it doesn't say. Employers don't care. They don't weigh it different. The only place an employer has ever cared, I won't say that globally, because as somebody mentioned on the last study group, they are an instructor who will be instructing the 601 exam, and their employer requires them to take the 601 exam so they can properly instruct it. Okay, I'm not talking about you. That's different. That's a different thing. I'm talking about the other folks in the industry. And all they want to know is that you got your Security Plus. Think about it this way. What if you took the 401 exam 5 years ago and you got your Security Plus certification? Then you renewed it after 3 years, and then you just renewed it again. So it's good for another 3 years after this. It's still the Security Plus. You are just as Security Plus certified today as someone who takes the 601 and passes it today, except you took the 401. So that's why. Employers just want to see that you've kept that cert up to date, that you're Security Plus certified. That's it. That is the only thing they care about. And I really have not seen anybody care any differently. Because ultimately you're just going to renew it anyway. You're not going to, when the 701 comes out, you're not going to take that. You're already Security Plus certified. You're just going to renew. So that's the idea. Just so you're clear. Employers can look up your score and exam from your ID number. No, they can't. Nobody even knows what your score is after you pass. It's just you're passed. You, in fact, can give the employer a link that will link them to your certification credentials on the CompTIA website. And that shows, yes, you passed and that you have Security Plus, and it is active. And you have it, you earn it, you own it in good standing. That's all it says. It doesn't say that you scored a certain amount or which exam you took. It's not important. All they care is that it's active. You're absolutely correct. Are there any go-to videos / books for learning Linux? Somebody was talking to me this week about Linux and fussing about the way I say daemon in Linux, which actually is the way it's pronounced. But we also have people that say daemon because it's spelled that way. But that actually is what we ended up calling it because it was spelled that way, even though it's pronounced daemon. So it's okay to say both. That was a weird thing that we went back and forth about Linux over. But they were talking about Linux Plus, and I think it'd be fun to do some Linux Plus videos. I don't have any specific videos / books that I reference for Linux. Daemon is a perfectly legitimate way to pronounce it. I had to kind of explain to them, it's one that we created to be legitimate because we all were mispronouncing it. But now it's not a mispronunciation, it's another pronunciation. So daemon is how it's pronounced. DAEMON is a spelling of demon. That's how it's a different spelling for demon. Anyway, it's one of those dumb things that because I did a Linux video, I get to talk about how the sky is banana. It's just the normal part of my day. Let's go back to the phones real quick. Speaking of banana, it's the 226 area code. I don't know. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Brian.
Hey, well, Brian, thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
I got a question. The question I have is, how big is your car?
There's the separate part of the sky is banana nobody in the chat room's really getting is that it makes no sense. Most of the emails I get make no sense. Most of the things whenever I'm working through don't make much sense, but it's okay because I have a standard set of messages I send out when the sky is banana. Whenever I start working through the other details of this also, and I have to go through and figure out where the best place is to get resources, I guess what I focus on is really Amazon. That's my choice. So if somebody's trying to find good Linux Plus, I would just go through and figure out the details of that. That would be where I would go. There's a lot of people who give you recommendations on Reddit as well. I think that'd be the way to do it. So my recommendations go with those two places. Well, that kind of covers the bases. I think we've completed our 501 study group. We've gone through your calls. We've gone through your questions. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you being here for the first hour of Q&A and the questions in the second hour. One of the things I think if I focus on this, if you come back in January, is the 601. So if you're working toward your 601, that'll be the place to be. We'll do all 601 questions. I'll probably in January make it so that we have focus on 601 questions. Maybe we'll make it all 601 specific to kind of have things start off. It might be a fun thing to do. I think it's one of the greatest things is just to get on live and chat with all of you. I appreciate you and appreciate your calls. It's been a fantastic year. We could not have to be where we are without you. It's been a crazy year, and we've all sort of made it up to this point together. So thank you for everything that you're doing. I appreciate all of you, and we look forward to even more craziness in the year to come. Have a great holiday season. We'll see you after the New Year's. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time on the Security Plus Study Group.